Hello, and welcome to today's coverage of the finals of the Play for Russia charity event. Evgenii, how are you today?
Okay, as you know, we've experienced some technical issues, but yes, I'm looking forward to the games. That seems to be very exciting. The semifinals first, then the final, and as well, I've just learned by checking the regulation, there will be a tiebreak for, or rather, the playoff for the third place. So
Oh, I didn't even know that. I'm learning that on the fly. The
So it's gonna
joys.
be a lot of chess. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of chess.
Absolutely. But I think we're starting with arguably the one match that everyone is the most awaiting the most eagerly. And again, no disrespect to Peter, who's played some fantastic chess yesterday, or to Tomashevsky, and they are off. So Sasha, aka Alexander Grischuk, has the white pieces in game one, and he's playing former world champion, one of the main men behind the whole event, Vladimir Kramnik.
Right. So, well, Alexander Grischuk went with knight f3, g3, some sort of a ready opening or king's Indian attack, as we agreed to call it when white plays e4 and not c4. Well, they're playing pretty quickly. Yeah, the reminder on the format, so same 5 minutes plus 2 seconds. But since it's a knockout event, there has to be a way to break a tie if such occurs. So it will be 2 games, and in case of 1-1, that's going to be the Armageddon game, with white getting 1 extra minute, 4 minutes against 3, but white needing a win, and all will be in black's favor.
I think there is very good chances we'll see at least one Armageddon, since unfortunately for the chessmen, if I'm not mistaken, they'll only be playing 2 games in the semifinals. Of course, I think a lot of people would love to see more games between these two, but that is the way it is. The final will be longer with 4 games.
Yeah. So what's happening there in our game? Queens were traded pretty fast, and we have, I want to say, queenless middle game on the board, right? It's not yet an end game, even though queens are the only pieces which are traded off. Well, not that much potential of a king attacks in this kind of positions. It's more about who will maneuver better, who will get his pieces on better squares. Yeah, and Kramnik's last move, knight to c8, it's clearly the knight on e7 was not doing all that much, so he tries to relocate it to b6 or d6. I'm guessing Alexander is thinking of playing a2, a4, something like that. Bishop c4 is another natural move, but then black can trade and just go b5. So that's why I'm guessing Grischuk pauses right here. They've reached this position reasonably quickly, so it's not one of the main theoretical paths of some sort, but yeah, they've reached it pretty quickly. A3 is something I don't quite like. Knight b6, and maybe then he wants to play a4. Maybe that's the reason.
What would be the reason behind delaying it?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really understand what was wrong with immediate a4, but the move a3 apparently indicates his will to play c3, c4, but it's really hard to do after knight b6, because now if you go c4, knight a4 is very annoying. So now he has to do something about this knight a4 being a threat.
Yeah, and we see Sasha once again taking some time at the start of the game, and rook b1 is another somewhat mysterious looking move.
Yeah, rook b1 preparing to move the bishop to a1 in case of knight a4, but this, honestly, it does look a bit awkward for white. Does look a bit awkward. And Kramnik with his a7, a5 kind of stops c3, c4 for now. So I think Alexander Grischuk already got into some slight trouble, I want to say. And yeah, I mean, it's very hard, to outsmart Kramnik in such positions. Yeah, so I mean, of course, he's just a brilliant player and everything. Yeah, but since he pointed out himself in the interview, so the class is still there, right? And I mean, if you can trick him somehow, it's got to be something very complex with a lot of calculations, stuff like that. But to outplay Vladimir Kramnik, mission impossible.
I feel like, Kramnik has been teasing chess fans all over the world massively with this event, showing, how incredibly strong he still is, how he can still demolish some of the very best in the world. But yeah, he said he is not looking at the moment to come back to the board, at least for some classical chess.
Yeah, that was interesting, right? I mean, when yesterday in the interview he said, "Yes, I'm officially retired." Yeah, when was asked, I mean, "Are you planning to come back to competitive chess?" The answer was no. Well, actually, his rook c1 is another awkward move because now Black has bishop h6, pinning the knight on d2 and attacking it at the same time. So White will have to continue with awkward moves like rook c2 or something. I really don't like how it looks for Grischuk.
Yeah, I agree.
Imagine bishop h6, then some possibilities of bishop g4, like attacking both knights that they have to defend each other. You can barely move with White. Yeah, bishop h6, rook c2 is played.
And also he's almost 2 minutes down on the clock already. I mean, and one of the problems with this two-match, very short format for the semis, if you are Sasha, I mean, I'm saying, of course he's not lost here or anything, but if you were to lose with the white pieces, then you face the very unviable task of having to beat Kramnik with the black pieces in a must-win game.
Yeah, that's interesting because even though it's a blitz, and as we all know in blitz anything can happen, but it's 5 minutes plus 2 seconds. It's a slow blitz, and yeah, if you're trailing in the match after losing first game, especially with White, that'd be very, very tough. And now if you look at the position, not only it looks unpleasant for White, but also the flow, the way the game goes. Black plays all the natural moves. With every move, he improves his position, right? Knight went from e7 to b6, arguably better square. a5 puts some pressure on on White's queenside formation. Bishop to h6, kind of taking the better diagonal. So with every single move, Grischuk Kramnik similarly improves his position. But Grischuk goes for some really awkward maneuvering. Rook on c2, bishop on c1. That's something you don't want to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, I've mentioned it before, but he's down to 1 minute already. This is going to be a very tough uphill battle from here. And if you just look at the pieces, like the black pieces all look very nice, and the white ones a bit awkward.
Well, again, rook a8 to d8, doubling the rooks. Well, now perhaps I would think of playing b4, b5 for White, because the fact that Black has the rook on d7 takes away the square from the knight on d7. So I thought b5, and if you force the knight to b8, then maybe you can play c4, c5. Grischuk plays king g2, and that's a struggle. That feels like the move he's making, it's kind of, he's desperately looking for a move not to blunder anything. So that's the feeling.
And how do you increase the pressure as Black here?
Not sure really. The feeling is Black might want to take on b4, so that a4, some move there, so that in response to b5, he's going to have knight a5. So the square on a5 might be very useful. Well, f5 there is also like straightforward f5.
I was just gonna ask you about that. My eye is always immediately drawn to the f pawn, and I was wondering. But he plays another preparation move, maybe.
King to g7, just in case, like if any sort of tactical mess starts, his bishop on h6 will now be defended. So let's say a move like knight b3 won't be played with a tempo. And bishop f1 to e2, right?
I just wanted to say that Peter Svidler is actually in the Lead Chess Tournament chat. I don't know if you can see him. So a warm welcome to him. He will be playing the second semi-final against Evgenii Tomashevsky later. And he's saying that he has this event, we haven't mentioned it enough, but is live right now on the main sports channel in Russia, which is fantastic news for chess. Not just Russian chess, but chess everywhere.
Right, so look what Kramnik has done. Exchanges on b4, and rook from d8 goes back to a8. So a little bit slows himself down, right? So he spent 2 tempi going to d8 and going back to a8. And now with all those exchanges, maybe it gets a bit easier for White. because now what I can see that the knight on c6 is not ideally placed, restricted by pawns on c3 and b4.
Yeah, so the knight jumps back to d8. I guess it's headed to e6?
Yeah, knight goes to e6. Something very similar, if you think of it, something very similar on material. White having the light square bishop and the knight versus two knights has happened in the second blitz game between those two.
That's
where
true,
Grischuk
yeah.
was trying to press and eventually ended up blundering the knight, if you remember, some knight d5.
And the king, yeah, I remember, that's funny.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to draw any parallels right now, but you know, yeah, that's a fairly similar position in characters. So.
Yeah, and it looks like, I mean, it was looking so promising for black earlier, but now, as you say, the advantage sort of seems to have slipped away a little bit.
Yeah, and a move like c5 again. He's certainly trying to get some squares for himself, right? Like either to take on b4, if black's to move, he's very happy to capture on b4. Yeah, by the way, bishop g4 is a fair point. Attacking the knight on c6 and then b takes c5. Yeah, I think Alexander certainly turned the tables. I'm not sure if he's better or anything, but certainly not worse. And maybe he just wins the pawn. I mean, what do you do? Knight on e6 is...
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't see how you take care of that.
Well, maybe some tactical tricks of some sort, like trade on a2, take on b4, and hope that after bishop e6, b takes c3, your pawn is worth something. But it's not very likely.
Knight c6, and there falls the c5 pawn. Knight goes to a4.
Yeah, but then knight b3. That's precisely that was my concern. That how does it work for you? Because knight b3 and there is no knight a6. That was important point. Okay, there is knight b5. Kramnik says, yeah, knight to b5 and c3 pawns attacked. If c pawn moves, then there is knight c3. There is also knight d4. So maybe the situation is actually not that grim for him.
And also the rook could at some point maybe join via d3. So yeah, how does white...
Well, the white's main struggle is actually the time. Now that I pay attention, it's 6 seconds. The Grischuk made his last move in 2 seconds only. Rook c2 to d2, returning the pawn, trying to simplify it a little. So
do we capture on c3 or
Yep. Knight d5 captures c3, f2, f3. Just blundered an exchange on a2, it seems. Yeah, knight a2, a terrible blunder.
Wow.
Just like that.
I mean,
knight c3
how did
and
that
rook...
happen? He just blundered by playing f3, just missing his rook was attacked. Or...
And knight d1 is a nice move by Kramnik. Knight d1, rook a3. I think it's just, complete dominance there. Check, king on g1, knight e3. It's got to be some checkmate. Okay, rook e2 is another nice move. Bishop d5, however. Yeah, maybe should have... he wins. He wins. Yeah. Rook c1 and captures on d5 twice. Yeah, that's game over. That's game over. Rook c3 check, wins on the spot. Rook takes d5.
He does it this way around, but it's the same motive. This is going to pick up the rook.
Check. Okay, you play king d2 and d6, a d pawn, but it's stopped via rook a3, and that's game for Kramnik.
Absolutely. Wow, what a big victory for Vladimir Kramnik with the black pieces. Evgeny, I'll let you talk about the game for 1 second. I'm going to see if I can try and capture the players' cameras. As people know, we've had some issues going into this, so no promises, but I'm going to see what I can do.
Yeah, so what's interesting going through the game, and it seems that, no big thing was, when it looked like black was better, or much better, it wasn't, in fact, that dramatic. Yes, all the moments like bishop h6 and so on. Yeah, after rook a b1, there was a certain moment where black...
Which move is this? Let me just try.
Move 15, after rook a b1, it turns out apparently that the whole idea with a5 happened to be just a waste of time. So rook d7 immediately was much stronger, and black would have been, would have serious advantage. Then tables turned indeed, and somewhere around move 25, and especially after black c5 on move 27, it's white who is better. after like c5, it's certainly white who is better, up to the moment when there was this terrible move f3 played, and basically just left the rook, just left the rook under attack of black's knight. So that's really, really huge mistake, which costed Grischuk the game pretty much.
Absolutely. I don't know. We haven't heard. Oh, do we know at what time exactly the next game will start, Evgenii?
Not sure. I think it'll just appear on, the broadcast panel.
Okay, so it looks like I have another minute or two to try and find the players. We would really love to show you.
Наступай на горло.
Okay, so if I mute that. Okay, we'll try. When the next game gets underway, I'll try to
show the players as well. Okay, game 2 is already listed, not started yet. The reminders, the semifinals play one after the other. So that means that next game we're going to see is the second game of the semifinal, Kramnik having the white pieces against Grischuk.
Absolutely, yes, and in a must-win situation, as I mentioned. And they are off.
Yeah, I know arguing with the chat on Lichess is not the best of ideas, but now I can see people blaming chess players for a low quality game. See, I would not be that critical. I mean, check yesterday's game.
Yeah.
Check yesterday's day. That was just impressive, quality wise as well. Yeah, okay. I mean, that's game 1. It's sort of a warm up, and regrettably, that's a semi-final, so the stakes are quite high. Well, speaking of high stakes, there is no difference in like prize money. All the prize fund is equally shared between 8 regions that players are representing. And so, well, you win the tournament, it doesn't mean anything in monetary sense.
I think what Grischuk was saying yesterday, if I'm not sure, is that they can choose some of the charities that the money will go to, right? I thought it was actually very interesting what he said, how he had chosen a charity that supports homeless people. And it's great to see all these players, so involved, and also to say, the sports result is secondary, but really the main thing here, is to help people. And so much money was raised, over $330,000. So a lot of people will be able to be helped thanks to these 8 fantastic players and everyone who helped put on this event.
Okay, so what's happening in game 2? In fact, I would not be that unhappy being Grischuk in this situation. So at least he's got some play, he's got some position which is not completely sterile. So you can play. I mean, there is some imbalance in the center. Yeah, well, typically white kind of is slightly better in those situations because it happens to be that his black's d5 pawn is somewhat weak compared to white's. Say white's backward pawn on e2 is not that much of an issue, but still the position is unbalanced enough so that you can hope to get some play. Unlike, say, some Berlin with rook e1, where you just like doomed to swap all the pieces, agree a draw with black pretty much.
And the chat Oriel is saying he expected Sasha to play something still more sharp. Yesterday, for example, we saw him play the Dutch. How do you evaluate this as a choice for a must-win game?
Well, Peter Svidler actually made a valid point in the Lichess chat. Yeah, exactly. Guys, behave yourself. So bishop f4, rook to c8, prepping some knight c4 jump, I believe. Even though it might cost black the b7 pawn, but it's not. It's not. Not the moment where you care that much about your pawns, right? You desperately need to organize some sort of a mess and then trick one of the great players, Vladimir Kramnik. You have to trick him and outplay him in such position. h7, h6, well, I mean, just in case, I'm assuming. And queen b5. Queen b5, just like that. Target the a5 pawn. So there is some awkwardness in black's position, namely the knight on b6 being somewhat in the air, right? So, well, you can't really move the queen that easily. That's why I wanted to jump to c4, even possibly with a tempo loss. So now a5 pawn is attacked. If bishop goes to b4, I assume knight a2 is what should be bothering for black.
And it's not so, it's very difficult to find a move to deal with this.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So apparently you have to go for some sort of knight c4 and just, mess up the position and hope that it works for you. Knight c4, knight takes c4, and possibly even take with the pawn, even though I presume the objective evaluation of this position is that white is much, much better. You drop b7, but you attack d4, and who knows what's happening there.
Yeah, it looks like Sasha is in some difficulty, at least to get the win he needs. In the chat, there was a question, best of how much is this? So for those of you who are just joining us, I'm looking at the Twitch chat, by the way. Welcome, and it's only best of 2 games. So all Kramnik needs to advance to the finals is a draw here with the white pieces.
Okay, so Grischuk is up for business here. G7, G5.
Wow.
That's serious. He had G5. Push the bishop back, and then he goes knight c4. Point being perhaps that after kicking the bishop away from f4, now he has an access to b8 square. So he decides to take on c4 with the rook, and now I presume if you capture on b7, it could be a move like queen b8, strangely enough. So you simplify it a little bit, and then, b2 will be weak, and black all of a sudden gets activity. Some knight g4 as well as an idea. Yeah, could be that Grischuk is getting some play at least. I mean, g5 was a brave decision.
Yeah, brave decision, but also probably not one we would have seen in different situations. But here he is with his back against the wall, and Kramnik does take on b7 and rook b4.
Ah, rook b4 immediately. Rook b4, rook b2. So that's the point. Rook b4. Could it be that Kramnik kind of overlooked this one? I really like the inclusion of rook b4, and maybe not even to hurry up with capturing on b2, but continue with some, knight g4 with a tap. No, he takes on b2 first. Now I'm wondering how serious is exchange sacrifice, like on there is no such thing. Yeah, because I wanted to capture on d5 then, but d5 is not hanging. That's a very typical motive for such structures, for such positions. You sacrifice the exchange on f6 and then you pick up the d5 pawn. But now it doesn't work simply because there is no such thing as picking up d5 pawn.
So the rooks come off, and the bishop blocks the b file. You don't want that rook, I guess, coming into b7 or anywhere.
Yeah, and that's also an important, an important move in terms of clarifying where the knight is going, because now knight b5 perhaps is the most tempting move, like the active move, but at the same time you start to feel that queen on a7, knight on b5 are a little bit too far away, and if something starts to happen on the other wing, like knight g4 for instance, knight b5, knight g4 and queen f6, and all of a sudden it could be that black is getting somewhere.
Yeah, the attack could roll in very quickly. So he doesn't move the knight. Can we somehow profit of this pin here?
Well, queen c8 is already an idea. Queen c8 hitting the knight also, well, maybe having some bishop h3 intentions, but in this case, white, I presume, plays rook c1, right?
Yeah. So rook c8, rook c1, and Sasha is taking some time here, but this match they are much more closely matched, and he decides on rook e8.
Yeah, rook e8, why not? After all, that's a semi-open file. Yeah, well, I tend to forget that, it's not only the C and the B files that are open, but also...
But here's another semi-open file, rook f1, looking down the f file.
Yeah, king to g7, just to make sure that everything's protected, and also like avoiding some tactical motives was possible. I don't know, knight d5 somewhere, like, open the discovered attack on the bishop, and maybe some knight f6 with a check. Yeah, queen a6. So king g7 is a solidifying move overall. Looks nice. queen to a6, back to d3. So Vlad tries to return the queen back into business.
Yeah, I think we are going to see very soon some action on the king side here. I don't know who is better placed. I guess the black king is a little bit more vulnerable overall, though.
Yeah, it really depends on. Yeah, well, that's what I was looking at. Like, is it bishop g4 or possibly even take on c3 and bishop g4? So basically, you give away a pair of bishops. You're very likely to drop your a5 pawn, but at the same time, you're getting control over the light squares and also, that knight e4 and try to get to the enemy king. That's a nice maneuver in there. Rook to e6, so that the knight on f6 is protected 100 times, and bishop h5 to g6 to control e4. I think Sasha found a very nice regroupment of pieces, and yeah, now it does look that the black's position looks very nice. Overall, I'm ready to come up with such a variation.
Yeah, Can I somehow bring the queen? I was looking, but queen f5, I guess you will meet with bishop g6 anyway, and it's hard to make any progress on this f-file.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, bishop g6, queen e2, and now jumps like knight e4, bishop e4. You might as well just trade, but okay, queen e7 is a nice move. Queen e7 is really a nice move. So now he's trying to to prove that the knight on b5 is basically a bit far away from the main theater, so to speak, right? If you capture on b4, I'm guessing a takes b4 is a strong move, so you create yourself a very strong pass on the b file and still keep an eye on e3.
Yeah.
To rook e1, okay, some bishop h5, no. Bishop e4 is the move, knight e4 is the move. Well, actually...
A lot of options.
A lot of options, yeah. And now the fact that it's they're getting low on the clock, that will be the main factor, because
both are now under 50 seconds, and I think it's another game that's very with everything possible, that's very likely to be decided by some oversight with little time.
Yeah, there is actually a very interesting idea of just capturing on d2 and going queen b4. But okay, he decides to keep everything on the board. So trade goes, okay, knight e4, queen b4, knight to c7 attacks the rook, and also the rook is taken with a check, so no any sort of intermediates.
But also attacking the pawn on d5, so does black have to go rook d6?
Rook c6, Grischuk says. Yeah, that's the move I was thinking of. Like, if you really want to play for win, you want to unbalance the situation even further. So queen takes a4, now it's a passed pawn for black on the a file. Rook c2 is a threat. I believe Grischuk's position objectively should be close to winning, but still, with that little time on the clock, it can be decided by one, one sudden blunder.
20 seconds each. Where are the white pieces? I was looking at this knight on d5. Was knight e7 an option? He decided on rook f1.
Knight e7 certainly was an option, and maybe was a good move, in fact. But yeah, Kramnik decided for rook f1, and after rook c2, queen f3, g4. What's g4? G4, queen g4? Rook takes g2. Queen c2 check, queen a2, queen d5. That's a fair point. Yeah, well, Grischuk is winning.
Wow.
Grischuk is winning. That's a very, very nice tactic he found.
Lovely. Yeah, and this ending, the queens come off the board, unless white can somehow win this a-pawn, but... Can he? Rook a1?
a4?
And then rook a3? What was...
I'm not sure.
The matter there. Oh, but now again, rook a3? I'm so confused. But now there's a check.
There was knight e4. In this latest version, it was knight e4 check first. And now he's fully in control. So the a4 pawn survives, and then knight goes to f3, picks up one pawn, picks up the other pawn. Yeah, you just play bishop e6, bishop e3. That's completely winning position, and we will see an Armageddon, I believe. So a capture on h2, all the pawns will inevitably fall one after the other. Bishop b3, yeah, you just in case, you keep your pawn alive. Knight back to f3. Just capture. Yeah, maneuver your knight to e4, pick up the other pawn. Okay, I mean, here you don't have... I mean, the only thing you have to care about is not to lose on time here. The position is completely winning. You just don't want to lose on time. King d6, knight g5 as well as a possibility. Here you just go okay, king e5, yeah.
And Sasha is also up on the clock on top of having a winning position. His king is active, all his pieces are more or less defending, and this pawn is just running now.
Yeah, the pawn promotes. Takes, and his king, black king, is in the square of an h5 pawn, and even if it wasn't after h6, there is also bishop c2. So that's an equalizer from Sasha Grischuk. Both games won with the black pieces.
Amazing.
And we'll see an Armageddon right in the semi-final number 1.
Incredible. So remind us, what is going to be the time control? Also, I read earlier about how they are going to decide the colors, but if someone could write it out again for me maybe in the lead chess in the Twitch chat, that would be great. And it's going to be it's a historical moment for lead chess because it's the first ever Armageddon game played on lead chess.
Oh, okay. So, well, the thing is, I don't know what kind of a coin flip will be used. So typically, you know how it happens. So it's a coin flip, and then whoever wins the coin flip picks up the color. I do know what the time control is. White is getting 1 extra minute. In our case, it will be 4 versus 3. And there will be an increment starting from move 60.
Evgenii, sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, yeah, no, I'll let you finish, and then actually I just read up about the colors. Okay. So it will be Kramnik who picks because he came first in the qualifying event, and if we have so that's
right.
The way they do it.
Right. I've actually read it in the regulation, but I've mistakenly thought it was about picking the color in the first game of the semi-final, which of course, like in hindsight, is nonsense because you still play, you play the return game with the other colors. It doesn't give you any advantage basically to choose.
Well, I guess it depends. It's almost like in football when you decide which side do you want to play on first, do you want to have the slight advantage of the home crowd in the first half or the second half, so you could make a case for that, but yeah, I think it was about the Armageddon, and I also had misread it.
So Kramnik's going to pick the color. That's interesting what he's going to pick because there are 2 different schools in picking the color for the Armageddon. Some people really value 1 extra minute and say draw is still very unlikely result when it comes to blitz chess. Well, other school is just to pick black because black is solid. You have draw odds, and as well, sort of some additional pressure is on white. Right, so with black, you do what you normally do. You try to equalize, you try to play decent moves. And white, if especially if the game doesn't go your way, at some point you think, oh well, and I have to win it, and I have to win it, and and it kind of adds some stress, and you end up playing bad moves.
Evgenii, Kramnik chose black. What do you make of that decision?
Yep. Kramnik chooses black, and I have to tell you, 3 Armageddons that I've played and won. I was not involved in that many, but I've played 3 in my life only, won all 3, and all 3 times I was black.
And just to let the people who are watching know, the clock will update after the first move was made, which is just now they are off. So, Sasha, and what did you say the time control was? Is there a 1 second increment?
No, it had to be what I've read in regulations, and now I think it's different. What I've read in regulation, that the increment should have started from move 60, but now apparently they add increment immediately.
There is no way, I think, on any website out there to set this up to add the time after a certain amount of moves. So I think they had before today, and it looks like there is even a 2-second increment. Yeah,
that's certainly 2 seconds. It's just that in regulation that I was reading, and that those are the official ones in Russian.
They were changed. I'm just reading in the chat that the regulations were changed, I guess, before the finals. So we're being tricked, Evgenii.
Oh yeah, but then this extra 1 minute might not be that much of an issue if you play with an increment. You just keep, well, those of you guys who are constant participants of Internet Blitz, you know, there are amazing players who basically don't need this base time. The 3 minutes are not that relevant. It's just you have your 2 seconds of increment and that's it, right?
Does that to you make it more does that make it more surprising, like with the increment, I guess? But I think it's probably something the players thought about overnight when they learned, you know, there will be this 2-second increment. I'm sure that Kramnik didn't just 5 minutes ago started thinking, you know, oh, what am I gonna do? I'm sure this was a decision he took overnight. For me, it's somewhat surprising, but then again, what do I know?
You mean he's a decision of picking blacks? No, but that's you know, that's even makes it more understandable, so to speak, because with the original idea of the time control, and that's the time control which is used in all the knockout events, I believe, for the Armageddon, you start adding time after move 60. Then black has to survive 60 moves having 1 minute less. But with the increment,
you're absolutely correct. I was not thinking clearly, and indeed this would make it a lot more likely. I think probably in every Armageddon we'll see today, I would be surprised if the player who can choose ever chooses white.
Yeah, so I think knowing that platform doesn't support it, I mean, it could be that more fair would be just to do, you know, to flip a coin basically and just like just drawing of lots, and that's it. Because now if you give someone a chance to pick, we'll see. Of course, it's not given, it's not 100%, but I'm guessing everyone's gonna pick black.
Yeah, and so Chess Press, I see in the chat, is asking why could Kramnik choose? So the way the players decided there would be no coin flip is just whoever finished higher in the qualifying event would get to choose. So that means for this semi-final that was Kramnik, and for the next semi-final, if that also ends in a 1-1 tie, it will be Peter Svidler who will get to choose. Okay, let's look at the game now. So Sasha, once again in a must-win situation.
2 times in a row, right? So that's very, very typical position for what's called TMB, Tatakova, Makagonov, Bondarevsky. Sorry for shouting out all those games. All those names. H6, B6 system in Queen's Gambit declined. However, in our position, it's with a little bit of a twist because white has the knight on E2, while typically it is on F3. Not sure if it matters all that much. So as you can see, white managed to achieve quite a lot on the queen side, well, grabbed a lot of space, certainly has the initiative, now can trade on b6, go rook a7, can try to pressure on b6 pawn by going knight a4. That's also very typical. Basically, you try to provoke b5 and then install the knight on c5. Yeah, so 8 takes, 8 takes, rook a7.
This is all on the board, yes.
Yeah, rook a7. Black, however, gets some of his pieces around the king side, right? And then if he gets a chance to shift, say, the rook over the 6th rank, he might as well get a very, very serious chances on the king side.
I was just going to ask you, actually, it's very rare to see these knights on h5 and g5. They were slightly weirdly placed, and now we saw one jump back to f6. What are the ideal squares? I guess e4 must be one of the outposts you're looking at.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the key square in all the call spots, right? If white can prevent black from jumping to e4, or like under favorable circumstances, that's good for white. If black can install something on e4, it's good for black. By the way, Kramnik's last move, bishop to c8, it was an idea of capturing on h3, right? Bishop h3, gh3, knight f3 check, and Grischuk, of course, stops it with knight jump to f4.
Yes. So keeping an eye, and of course, like if there was ever any chances for perpetual, Kramnik would go for that. Let's remind everyone, this is the Armageddon. So black has draw, odds draw will be enough for Kramnik to advance to the finals.
Yeah. So knight e6, knight c3 to e2, and then capturing to f4 in exchange of one pair of minor pieces should be in white's favor, because his trumps are a bit of a more positional, so to speak, right? So achievements on the queen side, and then the fact that you've exchanged one pair of knights does not harm your chances all that much. For black, with every single exchange of the minor piece, it's getting harder and harder to make substantial progress on the king side. So rook to c1 perhaps, or
Yeah, I
rook to
was
c8
just
first? Yeah,
thinking that as well. I was looking at this pawn on c6, see how I can attack that. Defended by bishop e7, and here comes b5.
yeah, so-called minority attack, right? So you push the b-pawn up the board, you force black to commit some concessions, and then you enter the black's camp and you try to win both of those b-pawns. Like, for instance, now if c6 takes b5, Kramnik didn't play this move, then queen c7 would have followed, and that would be a very, very promising position for white. Now, let me see. I'm guessing queen b3 could be the idea, so that again, waiting for black to capture on b5 and to win the d5 pawn in return. Or might just capture, queen b3. He could have captured on c6 as well, but queen b3 seems to be a better move. So targets d5 twice, therefore black can't really move his c pawn. g5 is a very aggressive move for black. That could be an interesting try.
The thing is, it's a very committal move as well. Like, I think it's a move, if black was in a must-win, but he goes for it anyway. I was gonna say it's maybe a bit risky, a bit double-edged. The knight jumps to h5.
Knight h5, again, some tricks connected with check on f6 in the right moment, right moment being simply rook takes d7, knight f6. there was such trick. Yeah. So now, white can capture on c6 twice, right? Capture on c6 immediately. I actually think that b takes c6 was strong. I'm not sure why exactly he didn't play it. Knight g3, rook f6. Now he captures on c6. Still not too late. Check on a8. He could have given a check on a8 first, so that after king h7 there was queen d3. I think it was a miss by Grischuk. The fact that he traded the rook so quickly.
But queen now c6, he has another threat, I guess. Rook a8 and trying to come into f8, although he will block with the bishop. But yeah, those pieces are looking a bit dangerous now.
Knight h5, knight h5. Knight h5 just wins, because now rook is hanging with a check. When you move the rook, he trades on d6, captures on d7, knight f6. That's a brilliancy out there.
God.
Yeah, I think Sasha is just winning after knight h5. That's impressive. And look at the time difference, precisely 1 minute difference. So he kept it. Yeah.
Wow, the game is over.
Yeah, that's a really, really nice tactical point in the end. It was a great comeback by Sasha, and then even greater victory in the Armageddon.
Unbelievable. I mean, after losing game 1 with the white pieces, he bounced back, as you said, in game 2, and then went on. We thought black should be probably with this increment a favorite in the Armageddon, but he overcame that as well and won a second must-win game to qualified to the final. So congratulations to Sasha Grischuk, who had such a formidable performance on day 1. Then yesterday was a tough day for him today. The first game was tough, but he bounced back in the best of ways, and he's true to the final. So congrats to him.
And looking at it, just like going quickly through the game.
Yeah, I'll just put the final tactic on the board for the viewers to explain why Kramnik resigned. So the rook has to stay somewhere on the 6th rank to defend the queen. So let's say rook g6, you just take here, you take the bishop on d7, and in the end there is this fork picking up the rook. And white emerges a full piece up. That's why Kramnik resigned, and a very nice tactic to end this game.
Yeah, so, really, really nice game overall. I'm checking, even the computer criticizes Grischuk in a couple of moments, but in the moments where his move perhaps wasn't the strongest one, but it would still keep the advantage, so to speak. So I think we can agree by human standards, it's a very well-played game start to finish.
You know what I'm going to do, Evgeny? I'm going to give us both a quick 5-minute break. I think the second semi-final starts at 4 p.m. Moscow time, 3 p.m. my time, Central Europe. So that's 10 minutes from now. So I'll give us a 5-minute break, and we'll be back with the second semi-final, Svidler against Tomashevsky in just 5 minutes, so don't go anywhere. And welcome back. It is still the final day here at the Play for Russia charity tournament, and the first semi-final has just concluded. It ended in a victory for Sasha Grischuk in the end, so he is through to the final, and now we are going to find out who is going to face there. Will it be Peter Svidler or will it be Evgenii Tomashevsky?
Yeah, that's another exciting semi-final we are looking forward to.
Yeah, what is your expectation? I was surprised to see Peter Svidler so active in the chat, you know. I thought he might have more important things or bigger things to do.
But yeah, as players said, it's apparently not the result, but participation, which matters most.
Yeah.
And I don't think there have been a lot of preparation of any sort. It's just that, yeah, it's, it's a duty and an honor at the same time to participate in this event. So, and I think Peter is trying to participate as much as possible. So he was, he was very active on Facebook during this tournament, on Twitter and so on. And even, I could see him in Licha's chat, in a way, moderating the audience. And,
I know. You would think that after all these years, Peter would have learned, to not feed the trolls or not interact with the trolls. But no, it looks like he's still getting some joy out of that.
So the next game, which is scheduled like 5 minutes from now, or even should be less, is still not listed, right? Still not
listed. I read a couple of minutes ago that they were starting in 7 minutes, so it should be 3-4 minutes from now.
So as I said, as an answer to the criticism in Licha's chat about the quality of play, there was a warm-up game one, and really in 2 next consecutive games, Grischuk shown his best. Yes, so the next game is listed. It's going to be Evgenii Tomashevsky as white against Peter Svidler in game 1. So we can expect a 1d4 from Tomashevsky, and then, the Grunfeld defense, very likely. Tomashevsky, if I remember well, I think I do. He has quite a lot of interesting, fresh ideas in the openings. I don't know if it's going to be the case in this game, when it's a blitz and not that much time to think about, but yeah, that should be an exciting game.
Absolutely.
I don't think that Peter is that much of a favorite, honestly.
I think Evgenii Tomashevsky has been a bit of the dark, what do you call it? Not dark
horse.
Dark horse, yes.
Horse.
I think he's of course a tremendously strong grandmaster, but he's not, I think, for the general public following this event, I guess, especially maybe outside of Russia. He's not as big a household name, Peter Svidler, Alexander Grischuk, Vladimir Kramnik. It feels like everyone knows them. Tomashevsky, a lot of people, will have heard of him, etc., but he doesn't have the same presence. He also just hasn't been as involved as others, doing commentary or playing that much online chess, and they are off, so I will stop talking. But yeah, I think he's absolutely not to be underestimated.
What you have to know about Tomashevsky, he's 2 times Russian champion, 2 times a winner of Russian Super Finals, where Peter Svidler was playing. So that's kind of says enough, right? And Peter, let's not forget, is 8 times Russian champion.
Which is simply like such an incredible achievement.
Yeah, he's a record holder.
Yeah.
Chad suggests h5 on practically every move. 2h5, 3h5 for black. Nah, that's honestly, bishop c5 is already enough of a tricky system. Bishop c5, connected with c6, however, it's more of a mainstream. So c6, and then if white goes knight f3, I'm guessing it's e4 and then d5 and stuff like that. What you can do, you can play d3, then black builds up a center with d4. Yeah, that's quite an interesting turn of events. Okay, e3 is another possibility, of course. e3, knight g to e2, and then d4. So maybe h5 finally. last guess in the chat, h5. No.
I mean, if Peter played h5, the chat would go absolutely wild.
Yeah.
But no, they're more conservative. Castles.
Yeah. It's gonna be castles, knight e2. I'm guessing d5. Yeah, you want to play for the center. d5, c takes. And then, okay, c takes, knight takes. That's interesting. That actually is interesting. I didn't expect it. Not that it's any bad, but c takes d5 looked much more natural, right? Well, Peter's concern could have been that after cd5, white plays d4, and then after ed4 captures with the knight, right? So black ends up having an isolated pawn on d5. Yeah, this way white can do it as well, capture on d5 so that black is forced to take with the pawn. Yeah, that's what Tomashevsky is going after. But then black has bishop b4 check. No, well, Peter decided not to do it. So he captures on d4, knight d4, and then knight c6 apparently, challenging the d4 square at earliest possible time. Knight c6, yeah, so white is not yet on time to play b3, bishop b2 to support the d4 knight to be able to capture on d4 with the piece, right? So now b3 looks actually like a lousy move because black will just capture on d4, go rook e8. Yeah, knight
so
c6 is
pretty much,
yeah, pretty much what you have to do. Castles, so black is getting those so-called hanging pawns on c6 and d5. But since there are no knights in the position, right? So those blockade squares like that, well, white would be dreaming of getting one knight on d4, and then if there is a pair of knights and one knight on d4, the other knight on c5. But knights are non-existent species in this position, right? And that makes it very, very playable for black. Bishop a6 is a possibility, or start with a5, then bishop to a6, queen to b6. And then eventually break through in the center with d5, d4. Very often black gets, quite a serious play. And it's basically a position where you can say the play goes for all three results.
Yeah, absolutely. Meanwhile, I really like this plan you pointed out for black. Meanwhile, what about the white bishop pair? At the moment, the bishops on g2 and c1, none of them are really doing all that much. So what do you do about them? Can you...
Yeah, well, you have to look for some sort of b3, I'm guessing. b3, bishop b2, or bishop d2, bishop c3. That's the other case. But of course, you have to watch out for d4, d5. b3 might be awkward because of queen f6 now that I'm paying attention to. Yeah, that's why bishop d2 and then put the bishop on c3. So now the principled move is d4, I'm guessing. Because that's sort of a lost call.
But isn't c6?
Yeah, c6 is hanging. Then you play rook c8, for instance, and you go from there. So that was sort of a lost call for black to play d4. Now after queen b6, white has bishop c3, and at least for now there will be no d4s. Rook c1, that's interesting. So it's not in a hurry, it seems, to play d4. To stop d4 to play bishop c3. Now d4, however, is far less attractive because white captures on d4 and then c6 pawn is hanging with the tempo, right?
Yeah. So...
Not sure what black has to do. Maybe just move the bishop away from c5. The bishop on c5 is hanging. But then, of course, bishop
then
c3...
Then you say goodbye to d4, I guess. Maybe not forever, but at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Bishop e7. Now perhaps you switch to more, let's say, more conservative play. Rook f to d8, rook a to c8, push c5 if the opportunity presents itself, and only then go with d5, d4.
And white, meanwhile, puts the bishop to c3. That bishop is now looking a lot better than it did on c1 a couple of moves ago. Would white want to try and trade queens with queen d4? Or
yeah, queen d4 is an interesting move. I actually thought it was a legit way of continuing the game. Queen a4, however, is also quite clever because bishop a5 is a threat. In some cases, shifting the queen to g4 if the bishop from f5 leaves, or queen f4, let's say. And one more thing to this position, e3, e4 now can be the move. I'd say after black going a5, there is an idea for white to play e4. swap the center, swap the light square bishops. Yeah, we are about to see if Tomashevsky will go with a 3e4.
Can he meet e4? Can black play e5 there?
You mean d4? e4, d4?
Yeah.
Yeah, a5, rook fd1. Yeah, okay, still prepares for e4. I'm guessing, yeah, I mean, if you play e4 as white and force black to take, then the situation in the center clarifies, and white is just having somewhat better structure for no particular compensation for black. Now again, queen d4. Well, queen d4 actually leads to a pleasant position for white. Queen d4, you pretty much force black to take, and then bishop takes d4, right?
Yeah, and then maybe put the bishop even on c5 or stop c5. And it just looks like white has more space, and also still the hanging pawns, I guess, could be a weakness at some point in the future.
Right. After rook d2, he's prepared to meet c5 with rook d1, but this might be a little bit awkward at some point. Like if black starts breaking again. I mean, it's all the time you should be looking for like d4 break, literally everywhere. Bishop f8 guards g7 just in case. Queen d4 no longer threatens to swap the queens. Queen d4 will be met with c6, c5. h4, h6. h4 is again a typical move, just seizing some space on the king side. And then, well, I think it was Botvinnik to come up with such plan that at some point g4, g5 all of a sudden, even though the position was a little bit different. It was the isolated pawn on d5, and very well known principle of two weaknesses, right? So you press somewhere in the center on the queen side, and then you need to open the second front. And I think it was like one of the Botvinnik games when he came up with g4, g5. It might still be the case there. Peter goes with bishop b4. I wonder if he's planning to swap the bishop himself or just wait for white.
Yeah. And then I guess he would love to capture with the a pawn or with
yeah. If bishop b4 played, then of course, a5 takes b4 is a good move. Queen c5, rook c1. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of queen c5, to be honest, because now if you swap everything, maybe you're not that much worse, but it's like clearly you are playing for a draw. I mean, so before that, it looked like anyone's game, and basically black was just a participant of the process, playing for 3 results. And now all of a sudden, black pretty much switches to will I make a draw attitude.
So what do you do? There's still the standoff about who is going to exchange those bishops. I guess black is still waiting for white to take, but white is saying, I don't want to do you that favor.
I think you can play a3. a3, bishop takes and take with the queen.
Oh, and here's e4.
He decides to go with e4. Yeah, makes sense as well, since there is no d4 move, and a capture on e4 would mean, precisely as I described, it would mean that black just left with somewhat worse pawn structure. Yeah, not that easy. Bishop c3, so, well, Peter feels like that's the time to simplify the position.
I guess you will capture it with the queen, or...
Yeah, you take with the queen, black trades the queens, I'm guessing, just not to waste time moving the queen away. And now the tempting thing to capture on e4 and a2 runs into b2, b3. That's important. So if you capture on e4, bishop e4, and then you go after this a2 pawn, then after b3, the bishop is trapped. Okay, rook b8, b3. Now the d5 pawn, well, it's not hanging just yet, but still you have to take some actions about this d5 pawn.
What do you do? Do you take? I guess you don't really want to take on e4.
Well, Peter goes with king f8. Could have taken and can c5, I guess. Yeah, after rook b8, so no longer the c6 pawn is pinned, and he could have taken on e4 and gone c5. Now after rook c5, the a5 pawn is attacked. Yeah, so he's getting rid of it by just playing a4.
I'm starting to get a bit worried about Peter's position. No?
Yeah, I think he will end up being down a pawn. Yeah, rook to b4, bishop c6. What do you do there? Bishop c6. I don't see I don't see how do you use the pin on the c file necessarily. Okay, rook a4, fair enough, but then bishop a4, rook c5, that's a pawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pawn, and even a move like, well, bishop b3 has to be evaluated.
Yeah, I was wondering. So bishop b3. Let's admit these bishops come off, and they do come off. So we don't have to. We don't have to admit we're going to see it. I was actually gonna ask you this endgame. Do you know?
Well, I know, like, rook behind, it has to be a draw. That's what we were all taught in let's say, in the school. But this particular one, with pawn being on b3, it might be somewhat tricky, to be honest. Yeah, now, for instance, white has a very serious strat. f3, g4, and then rook guards all the weak pawns, and king is marching towards the queen side. I'm actually
looks like that's what's happening, yeah?
Yeah, Peter might have misplayed it. And then, okay, rook e3. King d4 check, then king c4. Now the king is cut off from the king side. Yeah, king c4, and then king supports the pawn. Yeah, well, king b5. Rook c3 is good enough, but king b5 was the move as well. Yeah, b4. I guess Peter's position is very bad, in fact, because now his contemplate doesn't help really. You just go b5, b6. Yeah, that's absolutely winning for Tomashevsky, and that's a nice tactical game. Yeah, king c6 just wins. Yeah, king c6, that's pretty much so-called Lucina position with the b pawn, with the knight pawn, right? And f3
and Peter resigned.
Yeah, f3 and g5 make no difference whatsoever. So
wow.
All of a sudden, Peter got himself first in an unpleasant position, and then moves like, moves like a4, for instance. I didn't really like his a4.
a4.
Yeah, when rook c5 was played. So it's hard to say. Maybe king f8 was a little bit too slow. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, it seemed to... But for a while, it felt a bit uncomfortable. Like, it was weird how these positions slip, at least in my, lowly rated opinion. It's weird. At some point, it feels like, it's in the balance. And then a few, small, subtle moves, and suddenly... one side is firmly in charge, and it happens so quickly. So what do you think? Do you think that king f8, you think, was a bit too slow, or?
Yeah, well, the moment when he played king f8, well, the move, in fact, is not criticized by computers. I'm not sure if what I'm saying is right, but it looks like the moment he played king f8, just a second, let me find it.
Yeah, because that's I think we all switched away from the game for a second, because I think that's Lichas who have just re-uploaded the games from the first semi-final. I saw there were a few of you people in the chat asking where to find the games, so they are back here now.
Yeah, so looking at the position, and instead of king f4, I was still thinking maybe capture on e4 goes c5, but still, in any case, the position is already quite unpleasant. So apparently, there was something before that Peter could have done better. Okay, game 2 is about to start. Peter will have the white pieces, and he will be in a must-win situation, same as Alexander Grischuk was against Vladimir Kramnik.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other hand, Sasha had black, right, in his must game. At least Peter has the little consolation of being right.
Yeah, but the opening he went for, 1b3 and then bishop b2, it's not exactly, like strong service like in tennis. So basically you serve very strong, and then you run and you run to the net.
Yeah.
That's just to get an original position.
Also, so to get him out of any sort of, any
sort of book.
Yeah, just to get some sort of, just play a game. It's such a short time control. Yeah, anyway, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yep. So c4, knight c3, I think we've seen something very similar. Well, not anymore, right? I think in one of the games of preliminary, there was knight c3, followed by d4, followed by bishop d3. Possibly Jan was playing this, Jan Nepomniachtchi, that is.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so Peter went with bishop e2 and castle short. Black, yeah, black so far does all the reasonable things. Castle shorts himself, will go c7, c6, knight to d7, basically playing the London system, no matter what white is doing. Yeah. No, but that's a very healthy way of developing your pieces. Like you build a stronghold in the center with d5, e6, e6, and you make sure that your bishop, which is typically on c8, silly, it's developed to f5, and yeah, does very good job of controlling some central squares.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And white, meanwhile, is white ever gonna play d4? Or you think not?
Yeah, that's the question, because d4, that's perhaps the most tempting move in the position. Yeah, just play d4, but it will mean admitting a mistake in a way, because if he would have gone d4 few moves earlier, then not bishop e2, but bishop d3 had to be the move. Right, since he went with bishop e2, I'm guessing he might be looking at d2, d3, and then later on playing for e3, e4 somehow. Okay, rook c1 is, is a tricky move. I'm guessing just semi-waiting move, and yeah, knight d7, there will be another pass from white after knight d7.
What is a good pass move? Do you ever play a move like h3 or rook e1? What are good pass moves for white?
I guess h3 might be the idea, right? Rook e1. If you've let's say if you've settled for d3 e4, then rook e1 is something. Yeah, a7 a6 is a mysterious move to me, to be honest. I'm not sure if black ever wants to play b5. That's probably is too much. But we'll see. So both players start to play
the waiting game.
Knight e5. What's knight e5's about?
Play f4, g4.
Yeah, so Peter makes it clear he doesn't want to block his bishops on b2 diagonal, so he wants to pull a Lasker sacrifice perhaps at some point. Not the full Lasker sacrifice, you don't have the other bishop on d3, but a famous game where Lasker went to sacrifice both bishops on h7, g7. At some point it featured this kind of pawn formation. So the bishop was b2, and he went f4, and then the knight from c3 traveled to e2, g3, all the way to h5, something like that.
And here, so after f4, he took the knight on e5 and jumped into e4. Right,
and now we're going to have some really weird pawn formation there. Imagine white capturing on e4 and black takes with the pawn. I'm not sure if I've ever seen such thing. And black's bishop's presence on f5 kind of secures him from any sort of inconvenience on the king side.
We're gonna have no such fun. The big bishop recaptured.
Yeah, bishop recaptured, then it makes sense. Yeah. That's what I was about to say. That makes sense for white to play c5 to gain more space, and he will not play d4. He will leave d4 square open for the bishop. So next couple of moves for white will be queen e1 and to g3, if let's say if he gets to play this. Queen e1 can be met with h4 though. Can be met with h4, bishop h4. I mean, you go to e1, black goes bishop h4, forces you to play g3 pretty much, and then just goes back.
And then the way is blocked for the queen to ever go to g3.
Yeah.
Can we start maybe with, but rook f4 will also, I guess, be met maybe by bishop g5. I was wondering how can we...
we certainly need to do something with white. Starting to suspect, bishop d4 is the good way to start it. Starting to suspect it might be that we need to exchange the light square bishops with white. Because,
so bishop h5, or do you want to try and swap it on d3 somehow?
Something like that. Well, bishop h5 actually allows bishop d3. Yeah, that's sad. Maybe there is just no way for white. Maybe black is just so solid.
Maybe rook f2, queen f1, bishop d3. But
that's not a bad maneuver, by the way. Rook f2, queen f1, then bishop d3. So ideally, what we want to get, we want to swap the bishops. Let's say white plays bishop h5, and then black, for some reason, decides to take. So bishop h5, queen h5. Then white doubles the rooks, rook f3, other rook to f1, and then you can feel that there is something going on.
Some pressure on f7 along the f file. Bishop g4. So maybe he wants bishop g4, queen e2.
Or f3, queen f3, queen h3.
Queen f3,
Yeah, because move king h7 kind of suggests that black is looking for the way to push his f pawn. Right, king h7, go away, protect the d6 bishop, and then f7, f6, or f7, f5 is certainly the idea. Queen d7, guarding the e6 pawn, and once again f7, f5, f7, f6, something like that. So Peter desperately needs to, to find the proper reaction. Yeah, queen f3 and possibly f5 or f6 answered with queen g3. f5, however, is a move.
f5 is played, yeah.
Brilliant. f5 and Peter takes it. Bishop takes queen g3, still trying to keep control over e5. After queen e7, I'm guessing bishop e5 is the move. So it's more of a positional game now from white's side. Yeah. Like he wants to, control e5 as much as possible. Well, bishop f5 is a clever move. Bishop f5, bishop to h5. Now e5? No, e5 we still take twice, right? Yep, bishop a5. Bishop takes on d4, e takes, rook f6. And now white has the access to e5 square, but his d pawns are doubled. That's not easy for white again. Both sides doubling the rooks on the f file. But yeah, I can hardly see how white's supposed to make progress. Okay, you get all your pieces to perfect squares, like queen on e5 and so on, but what's then?
Can you try and push your pawns? I mean, I keep saying this, but maybe he will have to eventually, try and push the g pawn. G4, H4, G5, and let's go. I mean, he's in a must-win situation anyway. I think if he cannot find a different break, he probably will have to, no?
Yeah, he'll probably end up doing this because kind of pushing the pawns on the other wing, that's what he actually went with. And so b4, it's more of a preventive move against queen a5. Okay, bishop e4, inducing some trades, d2, d3, but then the position is getting too simple. I'm afraid Peter will not be able to.
I'm so surprised to see this move, queen d6, inviting a trade. I mean, you cannot trade everything because then the d pawn will just run, yeah?
Yeah. I think it's actually a clever way to try to disrupt black from what he's doing. It's not that easy for black to react right now. Now rook f2, and queen g. Nah, there is no queen g5 because f8 is hanging and the white can capture it with the queen. Rook f2, and then what do? Capture on d6, go rook d8. Yeah, okay.
And now rook f7. Okay, at least Peter managed to unbalance things a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, he's gonna capture on b7. Black's rook is very silly on d6. It's actually, some reasonable chances for white. b7, b5, that's brave. Rook to c7 and bishop to e8, I'm guessing. Yeah, so white wins the pawn back, inevitably. So the thing is, the bishop's handling, that's interesting, e5.
Oh, that's a nice way to liberating himself. But look at the clock situation, 20 seconds for Evgenii Tomashevsky versus 2 minutes for Peter Svidler, so that's another big factor.
Yeah, then d4 now. d4 might be an interesting try, just to, to make sure that, d4, fix another pawn on the light square. Rook f5 and rook f3. That's what Tomashevsky is trying to say. Well, that's all about piece activity, right? Rook f3. Apparently, white's going to win pawn on a6. Rook a3, bishop a6, rook a2, bishop b5, and then some move like rook g2. So I'm afraid Peter doesn't have enough control. Yeah, rook a2, and then rook g2 is the threat. Rook b2 is the threat. Well, you can play bishop f1 maybe. Okay, bishop c6.
So what? Rook g2?
Rook b2. Yeah, well, the b pawn was very dangerous, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea. So he's trying to get the pawn all the way to b7, it seems. So rook, well, check on g7.
Did he
So
just drop
Tomashevsky,
that pawn?
yeah, looks like he has blunted the pawn. Yeah, and Peter, well, runs reasonable chances of winning this.
Absolutely.
He leveling the score. King g4. Wait a second. What's that? King is getting to f3. Peter better to care about his own king, or he's getting checkmated. Rook to b8 is still not too late, it seems. Rook to b8, king f3, you give a check on f8, and then you go b7. So this way you are making sure you're not getting checkmate. Or maybe you do.
If the king goes to e3, after your check on f8, b7, and then what, rook g2?
Rook g2, king f1, rook h2. Well, that actually is very threatening.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It actually is very, very threatening. Rook f7 perhaps is what he needs to do, but then it's only one pawn. Yeah, that's tricky. So Peter had more than 1.5 minutes, but similarly can't find anything.
Yeah, I mean, this king is now dangerously close, and the white king. The problem is the b pawn is so close to checkmating, but these two, the rook and the bishop, are so far away from the defense of the white king, and it's not so easy to bring them back.
Bishop d7 check. Hang on a second. And bishop h3? And he's hoping this is going to hold. Wait a second. Rook b1, bishop d3, rook b1. Wow. That's just very dangerous. That's very dangerous.
What's going on here? Bishop d3. He wants to mate with rook f8, but now the t-pawn drops.
King d4, there is still a check from here. If you go to e1, you actually do get checkmated after king e3. I'm afraid Peter misplayed it completely. Bishop d3, rook e8. Okay, fair enough, but then rook takes b6. And black
I guess he will take the bishop first, maybe. I know he takes there first.
No, just takes there.
Yeah.
I think it's black who is better now. It's black who is better. White still, of course, gets the draw if he just starts pushing his pawns. g4, h4, and then, sack the rook for d-pawn, and then...
And Peter offered a draw with his move rook e3, check, recognizing the tied head turn, and with that draw, Tomashevsky is in the final. As I said before, maybe people didn't have on their radar, when the qualifier started for a finalist. Of course, a lot of people in the chat are so sad to see Peter lose. Yeah, it's a great pity, but congratulations to Tomashevsky, who, based on these two games, absolutely deserves his place in the final.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's not forget there will be a match for third place. That's at least what is in official regulation, and that means we will see Peter Svidler playing against Vladimir Kramnik, if this happens.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Let me actually find out when this match is going to take place. So I guess that's what will be happening next.
Yeah, well, logically it has to be match for the third place first, and then...
Yeah, I meant next rather than to see. I think we will also, I can announce it will be shortly joined by FIDE President Arkady Dvorkovich for a short interview. And yeah, I'm just trying to find out what the timetable looks like. And I think, okay, let's go over the game.
Yeah, not the entire game, but already when Peter was winning, and on move 42, after black played king f5 on move 42, his very tempting pawn push b5 b6 happens to be a mistake. He had to, so the pawn, as we could see in the game, the pawn was not supposed to get there. So the pawn was not getting to b8 anyway. So instead he had to play rook b8. That's what the computer suggests. Rook b8, so now he's kind of making it one move faster. If black passes in some way, say plays h5, then b6, and next move b7. So black has to go in, king g4 after rook b8, and then you play rook f8. So you make sure there is no king
cutting
f3.
off the king, yeah.
and there is obviously no king h3 because of bishop d7 and checkmate and then Herc's move.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and white apparently is still winning, even though in practical terms it's not that easy. Well, it's never easy to play the endgame with your king being cut on the second rank.
Yeah, but that's why I'm surprised. I mean, Peter still had some time. But yeah, b6, I guess it's just so tempting to just push the pawn. But after b6, I guess that's it. There were never any more chances here, were there?
Yeah, b6, king g4, and even the computer says it's very close to be equal. It's 0-30 or something. Yeah, 0-30.
Which is not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what a brilliant defense. I mean, really nice defense, I would say, by Tomaszewski. As well as always posing the most problems.
So Tomaszewski actually found a very, very nice way. Yeah, there is, you know what, now if we could go to move 31, so that we can show a little variation there. Move 31 after d e5, rook e6, right?
Yeah, so d5, rook e6?
Rook e6, yeah, and then it's something that you don't necessarily find in a blitz game, but in a classical you probably could. Bishop d7 was much stronger. Well, I dare to say that it was practically winning. Bishop to d7, you cannot go to rook e7, you can't play because
of bishop f5?
Bishop f5, so you capture the pawn on e5. Then white goes d4 first. Rook g5, and you play g2, g3.
Wait, 1 second. So the rook here has only 2 squares, yeah? g5 or h5?
g5 or h5. Yeah, you don't care that much if it goes h5. The important news is that the rook is not getting active. So after rook g5,
trapped, yeah?
Yeah, you go g2, g3, and then you collect the pawn on c6. So the computer line that the on-site engine is showing is rook g6, rook takes c6, and swap the rooks. But that has to be absolutely winning because white eventually picks up the a6 pawn, so he will be a pawn up, and also 2 pawns of black is fixed on the light squares. So that's the winning bishop sending.
And black doesn't really have a way to avoid this trade, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he can keep his rook on g5, but then you just collect on c6 with the rook, you take on a6 with the rook, you still pawn up, and the rook on g5. So that the main point is the rook is not penetrating to what we've seen in the game, rook f3, rook a3, and so on. So that was... But again, I mean, move like bishop d7, you pretty much never find in the blitz game. That's too advanced, so to speak.
Yeah, but a lovely, lovely move, bishop d7. And so after that, after he took on c6, is there anything else there? Rook e5, d4.
Yeah, he was still playing reasonably. I mean, everything was correct. Black shouldn't have blundered the g7 pawn, of course. When they got to say move 40, move 40, for instance, after rook b7, king g5, of course, it was too much. So black keeps the king on f6, let's say, and that just gives checks. Perhaps black's position is holdable. After he lost the second pawn, then we figured out, it was winning for white, and then Peter erred with this b6, after which it was a draw.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, so there's a question in the chat from... Thank you, and I'll let you answer it, Evgeny. How big a favorite do you think Sasha is in the final, if at all?
How big of a favorite Grischuk is against Tomashevsky? I'm not sure if there is like personal dynamics between those two, because that sometimes is also important. I would go with Grischuk. I mean, if you force me to bet one of those players, of course, I would go with Grischuk, simply knowing that he has more experience as the Blitz player. 3 times world Blitz champion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right, and especially with online Blitz as well. But just check it out. Tomashevsky in the preliminary tournament, he shared the place with Grischuk, and now, he made his way to the final in a way more convincing, or more convincing.
Absolutely. And another question that was asked in the chat earlier is since I think, as I said, Tomashevsky out of the four is the player people would know the least. Do you know, Evgeny, why he has the nickname the Professor?
The professor, because of his fundamental knowledge of the openings and the end games. So he's, you know, in terms of chess education, if I might pull such, you know, such phrase, he's one of the leading experts. Like, let's say, if Tomashevsky tells you that this particular rook endgame is winning, you don't check with the machine. I mean, you just believe him.
Yeah.
Or he says, okay, in this position, this move equalizes for black, and you don't need to. I mean, that's a final opinion. That's a final verdict. Because he doesn't make all the such statements without checking for. Speaking of Tomashevsky, remember the fun anecdote? I think we have time to discuss,
I think
right?
so too, yes.
Okay, so I was coaching back then in 2015. I was coaching Turkish national team. And there was one of the players, Alexander Ipatov, who had to play against Evgeny Tomashevsky. I think it was European in the European Team Championship. Yeah, European Team Championship. Ipatov went for some very complex line with black, got outplayed and lost. And then, the discussion after the game. Ipatov goes like, I checked this position with computer for a couple of hours, and I thought black was doing okay. Tomashevsky says, you know, I was checking this position for a couple of weeks with the computer, and I came to the conclusion that computer was wrong. Okay, that's Evgeny Tomashevsky. That's why he's called professor. That gives you an idea of how good he is in the opening theory.
That is a fantastic anecdote, and I think it gives, you know, some personality, some to the character. You know, we just see him behind the screen here, but yeah, it's a great story. I really like that one. Yevgeny, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take us to a break for another just 2-3 minutes while we try and find out when we will be joined by Arkady Dvorkovich, but it will be very soon. Don't go anywhere. And I'll try to see if I can today sort out our guest interview with the camera. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Okay, and we are back. And we are very happy to be joined by FIDE President Arkady Dvorkovich. Arkady, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I'm happy to be with you.
Yeah, so please welcome. And well, we've got a few questions to ask. First of all, who came up with an initiative to have this tournament? I've heard it was Vladimir Kramnik with participation of FIDE, of course. That's a wonderful initiative.
Yes, my understanding that it was Vladimir's idea that he discussed with the Russian Chess Federation, Andrei Filatov, Mark Gluchovsky, and we immediately supported as well, and we do highlights on our FIDE resources as well on YouTube and social media channels, since we believe it's the right idea to go with to support those medical professionals who work now 24 hours a day in different regions around the world, including in Russia, and 8 Russian players from 8 Russian regions are doing their best to support those brave people now.
Yes, well, Kramnik mentioned that it could be a start of such an initiative in different countries and so on and so on. So, like,
well, we know that there were a couple of events already. One in Singapore, one in France. We are receiving this information from different parts of the world, and of course, all federations, all chess federations, and FIDE as well, exploring further possibilities how to provide even more support to those who are in need. And playing chess, I think, is the thing that people like, and this can gather a lot of attention, and people would love to contribute. So maybe a bit, each person can contribute a bit, but in total we can collect a lot to bring help to people.
Yeah, and there is well, there is a question from a lot of say chess players, chess professionals. I could see this being debated on Facebook. What's happening next? What's the future? What's the future of professional chess? It's understandable that it's hard to answer such question. We don't know how long the lockdown will stay. But what are the plans for FIDE? I mean, basically, will there be some online events for not only for the top professionals, but let's say for grandmasters 26 to 27, so European individuals, stuff like that?
Well, first of all, we are optimistic about getting back to normal in a few months, but I think the future chess world will be the mix of online and offline chess, over-the-board chess. We'll see both formats, and we should support both. For the time being, we, besides top professional events, we had very successful online Nations Cup just a few days ago. We'll have the Steinitz Memorial starting tomorrow, the Blitz, both for men and women, with the players who didn't participate actually in the online Nations Cup. We'll see more events from Magnus Carlsen, where he invites top players as well. But we are also planning tournaments both for amateurs, and you will see our initiatives very soon already. In a few hours, we'll announce a nice thing that will be accessible for everyone, but not for grandmasters, but for all amateurs around the world. As far as grandmasters 2600 plus are concerned, we are thinking about series of tournaments, but it's not ready yet, since we need to resolve all kinds of technical details and issues with online platforms, but we're working on that. Also, we have an idea of hosting the online Olympiad this year. It's also a big project that would require a lot of technical work, but we are confident we can do it in July.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. That's great news, in fact. Yes, and since you've mentioned mixture of online events and over the board events, it actually makes a lot of sense now that I'm thinking that indeed the established qualification cycle for example, right? When it starts on a very, very low levels, for instance, like you play in your country champion or your region champion to qualify to your country championship, then to European or wherever you are. And maybe some of those steps be held online, so it's less monetary pressure on the organizers.
Well, we are not there yet. The ideas like that, we have been discussing this for some time. The biggest challenge, of course, is anti-cheating procedures, and this is a major issue with online chess. We need to make sure that the risks of cheating are not bigger than the same risks in over-the-board chess. We have some ideas how to do this, some approaches, but that requires investments. And we are discussing with our partners, with online partners, how we can do this together to provide for better access of chess players around the world to top chess. And that's one of the reasons we are not mixing also ratings, online ratings and standard LO ratings. We are not at the point where we can allow to do that.
Yeah, so, but anyway, great news. Thank you for saying that explicitly, that there are plans to have more online events, and yeah, grandmasters can participate.
Great. Well,
So
I think that's unfortunately we're gonna have to let you go, since I think the final will start in 1 minute.
Yes, yes. Good luck to both players. We'll all be following the final. So great event.
Thank
Great
you very
initiative.
much, Arkady, for your time and for the support. And we're looking forward to all the exciting online events.
Yeah,
that are to
I'd like
come.
to thank. Yes, I would like to thank Lichess as well for great contribution to this initiative. We are working with all platforms, and Lichess does a lot for social events and social chess.
Thank you very, very much, Arkady. Thank you very much, and hopefully
Thank you.
we'll hear from you another time. Bye-bye.
Yeah, sure. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I've had my usual problems. Now let me get you back. Evgenii, I lost your camera there for a second. Let's see, I hope the final... Oh god, they are off. Okay, I'll let you commentate on the games while I try and...
Yeah, just open the game, right? It's Evgeny Tomashevsky against Grandmaster Sasha, also known as Alexander Grischuk to some. And Grischuk once again goes for the King's Indian setup. So already with white and black, he does pretty much the same, right? H2, H3 on move 6, known as Makagonov system against the King's Indian. That's stuff that Tomashevsky plays on permanent basis. So that's something that, well, sort of his trademark line.
Can I just, Evgeny, can I just ask you just to accept my video call, because I'd removed your camera for a second, and then we'll come back to the game immediately.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just tell me if it worked.
For some reason, everything is broken again, but I'll let you talk about the game and I will fix it.
Okay, thank you very much. So talking about the game, I remember those two played certainly the same variation and possibly as well exactly the same position in one of the Russian Super Finals, and or maybe it was a Grand Prix held in Russia. I'm not 100% sure. But indeed, those players are not new to this variation. They've certainly played each other. They know what it's all about. Interesting fact, Grischuk barely spent any time in the opening, so that's shocking news, right? Typically, Alexander, even if he's in his book, so to speak, even if he knows the opening, typically he tends to spend, 1/3 of his time given. So in our case, he has to be like on 3 minutes instead of what he has 4.5. Yeah, after Queen C2, seems that he's a little bit surprised. He started to think right here. Queen to A5 is another logical move. So basically what you do with black is you try to achieve some sort of a counterplay on the queen side. Queen goes to A5, bishop D7, rook F8 to C8. Very often what is happening.
So I'm sorry, I'll fix your camera between the two games, but let's focus on the action at hand. So indeed, I'm sorry about the misinformation earlier. So there was no match for third place, so we went straight to the final, and the final will be a best of 4 games.
So it's that means that means you can't lose the match in 2 games. So that much I can understand. Okay, Grischuk, perhaps after the semi-final against Kramnik, he seizes the title of Master of Comebacks, which typically belongs to Sergei Karjakin. Yeah, that was an impressive comeback against Kramnik. I mean, when he was in a must-win situation with Black, Sasha Grischuk, that is, and he managed, and then overtook Vladimir.
Yeah.
What's happening there? Well, not so much for the time being. All those moves are pretty standard. Grischuk managed to play those standard moves faster. A3 looks strange positionally, guys in the Twitch chat, in the Lichess chat say, but A3 is exactly what you're supposed to do in this. So that's a special kind of position. Yeah, I agree. Typically, you don't want your pawns to be fixed this way with B2 and A3 against Black's A4 pawn, right? But Black was constantly threatening to play A4, A3 himself, and that's why. And yeah, just general remark about this position. So White's supposed to be better. White has more space. White has the control. But the drawback of this, the downside of it, is that he's somewhat overextended. And especially in the blitz game, it's like you literally have to watch out for various sacrifices all over the board. Like now, for instance, after Rook C8, F2, F3 was perhaps needed because something along the lines of capture on E4 twice, and when queen captures go F5 is typically very dangerous. So F2, F3, now you can try to soften White's king side a bit with a move like H5.
H5, interesting. I was just wondering actually if White could be the one. I was thinking of White to push the pawn. So the knight went, he didn't go H5, which looked interesting, and Tomashevsky says none of your nonsensical pushing the H-pawn flans Fiona and takes the rook to C1, so focusing more on the action on the queen side.
So the idea of rook H1 to C1 is that you've probably noticed how awkward it is to have the queen on C2, and that's why White is planning to go queen D1, but at the same time wants to keep the rooks connected. Hence, rook H1 to C1 and then queen to D1 to follow. Black's knight E8 hints at F5, obviously. So now I'm wondering...
Could it work immediately?
Yeah, will Grischuk play F5 immediately, or will settle for some other preparation move, so to speak? Because other than that, I'm not sure if, say, knight from E8 goes to C7 and then later on A6. That doesn't seem to be kind of a bright prospect for this knight. Yeah, I think it's all about playing F5. Bishop to F6 to D8 to B6, however, might be an interesting idea.
F5 is on the board.
Yeah, F5. Well, the thing is, Black achieves F5, but it doesn't do all that much, right? If you push the pawn further to F4, it's very hard to develop like real King's Indian initiative there, because the king side will be blocked. Okay, but yeah, now there's no time for for such detailed explanation, because B4 was played, the position is getting opened up on the queen side. That means a lot more sharp action starts.
This B5, can we take that pawn, or I guess we have to worry about our E4 pawn?
After knight F6. Yeah, after knight F6, capturing B5 typically leads to losing E4 pawn. Queen B4 is very unpleasant move for Black to face, because you don't want to really swap the queen. I mean, you don't want to be capturing on B4, but do you have an alternative? That's the question, because your D6 is hanging. In case of queen A6, A3, A4 is devastating, because the B5 pawn is pinned, so you don't want to be playing queen A6. I'm afraid you'll have to trade, but then, your prospects of a kingside attack with queen,
almost gone.
Yeah, those are gone, and it's really, really tough. I'm actually thinking of potential exchange sacrifice, like trade on b4, capture on e4, hope for white to take with the pawn, and then somehow take on c3, take on e4. I'm not insisting on this working for black, but that's at least a way to generate some sort of counterplay. Oh, maybe, you know what, Fiona? Maybe we go queen d8. Maybe we go queen d8.
Okay.
Yes, and then if white takes on d6, then we try to sacrifice an exchange, like rook c3. Yeah, that's what he's
nicely
doing.
Spotted.
Queen d8, and then, yeah, if he captures on d6 now, maybe black takes on c3, takes on e4, and tries to create a mess out of it.
Yeah, so let's see. So he doesn't take on d6, takes on b5.
Yeah, knight takes b5 makes sense as well. Well, simplify the position a little bit, take the pawn, rooks will be traded, right? And now d6 is hanging for reals. It's a good chance that the black will end up capturing on b5 as well. Yeah, I think Tomashevsky is in control. So those of you guys who underestimated him, it's still not too late to change your mind.
Absolutely. Can I play a4 here, or?
Yeah, you probably should. Yeah, rook b8 is a clever move because black wants to keep more pieces on the board. Again, I'm not speaking there of the objective value, but yeah, you know, it's a King's Indian, you want to checkmate. That's as simple as that. Yeah, h5, just like try to mess the position, try to come up with the initiative. Now, after g5, I'm not sure. I mean, I think the position, black will start sacrificing some. After g5, maybe to go f4 just to sacrifice.
One question, what happens if I take on d6?
With the queen?
Yeah.
Black starts capturing on g4, hg4, ag4, then takes on e4. I think the position opens up. e4 takes f5. That's another interesting move. Okay. g5. No, but now f4 for sure. Now it has to be f4.
So the point is, after knight d5, there's some bishop c4, and there's problems with the pin, I guess.
Yeah. That's typically is the problem of capturing this pawn on d5. However, here precisely, you can think of capturing this
and he
because
did
and he
because
does.
You have bishop e6, yeah.
You have bishop e6, and e3 is hanging with a check. That's super important. Yeah, and now black is in a superb shape. f4, and then g5 falls with a check. Yeah, that's actually looking very promising for Grischuk now.
Very powerful play by Grischuk here. And the only thing is, once again, his clock situation, he will keep an eye on that. Only 13 seconds for Sasha, 1 minute for Tomashevsky.
Yeah. So e takes f5 was apparently a mistake, because white really missed the fact that d5 can be taken.
Can white do anything here, or is he just busted?
Not really. As I think white's position falls apart because you absolutely have to take on d5. Oh, wait a second. Maybe h4 can be considered. So h4, wait for white. Yeah, wait for black to capture on e3.
But can he capture on f3 after h4? Somehow?
He can capture on f3. He can also take e3 and then go e4. Opening the bishop. Yeah, it looks really, really bad.
Yeah, and he resigns himself.
Queen g5, queen g3, f3, and he just resigns, yeah? No, not yet. Check on h3, pick the bishop on e3 with a check. Yeah, everything falls with a check, and in the end, black also captures the rook on d5. So that's impressive.
It's gonna be game over, and there it is. Tomashevsky resigns after queen takes e3. Check, and Sasha opens this final with a win. But 3 more games to come. We've seen we've seen one big comeback, at least by Sasha in the first game. Let's see how Tomashevsky will take this loss with the white pieces. I think the next game will probably start quite soon. Evgeny, if I could ask you to maybe leave the Zoom call and rejoin, because I think the fact that we had a guest messed up everything, and also even your volume was a bit lower. So I'll keep us guys on screen. I'll keep us on screen, but I'll mute us so that you can see my. You guys can see my frustration, but we're not going on a break. We're just gonna get Evgenie's camera back. Okay, we are unmuted and we are back, but I don't know what's going on. Evgeny, the second game has started. I will let you take again charge of the openings. I can hear you well, I can see you well, so I'll just try and get you back on the call, and I'll leave you for 1 second.
Yeah, sure, no problem with this. Alexander Grischuk has the white pieces in the second game against Evgeny Tomashevsky. Grischuk went for the London system again, so d4, bishop f4, knight f3. Well, started in fact with one knight f3, but not that big of a deal, just the transposition. Well, after queen b6, I believe rook b1 is the legit move. Pawns being swapped, bishop d7, bishop e2. I'm wondering if Tomashevsky is planning for bishop b5, because that's what his plan suggests. That's what his, or rather, opening moves order suggests. So bishop d7, and yeah, bishop b5 in order to swap the bishop, which potentially is very passive on c8, yeah, and to get something very similar to usual Carlsbads. So now the question is, if white will play c4, what's black's reaction is? c3, well, that's a modest move. c2, c3, maybe, you know what, now in the tournament situation, maybe Grischuk doesn't need to sharpen up the position that much. Yeah, even though I think c4 was a sensible alternative. To play c4, and if black captures on c4 just to castle short. So now we will soon have something resembling the Carlsbad. Again, the Carlsbad structure with colors reversed. I suspect black will capture on e2. Well, the fact that Tomashevsky is thinking perhaps hints at him looking at the other move. Could it be queen a6, trying to prevent white from castling short? That's an interesting idea, by the way. Now ends up capturing on e2, knight c6, so now it happens to be pretty standard. Bishop e7, white will play rook e1, or just jump to e5 immediately. Yeah, that's a very typical way of playing this. Knight e5, then knight goes back to d3 very often. Let's see, black perhaps has to castle. Yep, castle short. Then what to do? Well, perhaps knight d3 first, and then, because that's sort of an ideal square in this pawn's formation. The knight on d3, it does control a lot of important squares. Bishop to g5. Well, you know, just creating a very, very straightforward threat. Capture on f6, go knight d7, pretty much win the game. So black has to react to this in some way. Queen c7 or rook d8. Rook e8, yeah, fair enough. So the fact that white can capture on f6 and go knight d7 in this case is not that threatening anymore, because white doesn't win an exchange, but just swaps a couple of pieces. Knowing the match situation, however, I will not be surprised if Grischuk will go for it. Take on f6, bishop f6, knight to d7. After more or less forced queen d8, just capture on f6 and play from there.
I'm back with you, Evgeny, so I've drawn some arrows on the board. I'm so sorry, I'm literally one click away from getting your camera back, but the software... I really apologize one more time. I don't know why Zoom is causing so many issues. But yeah, let's look at the game. And again, after this, I'll try to get you back. And I think you were just saying that given the match situation, Sasha probably won't be too happy with not taking too much risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a decent strategy for him, right? To simplify and wait for the mistake to extend his lead, but if he makes it a draw, so be it. Queen a6, an interesting try to unbalance the position a little. I mean, first of all, after f4, you're kind of getting a clear hint that white wouldn't mind to try to develop some attack on the king side, so you want to swap the queens with black. And the fact that you've doubled your pawns actually perhaps allows you some extra ideas on semi-open B and A files. So after bishop f6, I'm guessing knight d3 is still not trading the knights, but moving the knight back to d3, and so then it guards the b2 pawn, and then proceed with rook e1 and possibly prepare for f5. Grischuk goes with knight b3. Now, that also makes sense. So he kind of says, if you want to take, you will have to take yourself on a5 if you want to swap the knights, right? And my knight is heading towards the c5 square.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very surprised by this queen a6 move by black to get this sort of pawn structure with the doubled isolated a pawns.
Yeah, but maybe it's not that bad, you know, because imagine black starts pushing one of his a-pawns, like goes a4, prepares and plays a5. It's not that white has all that many comfortable reactions, because a4 means that your b-pawn is backward, right? Yeah. If you allow a4 from white's side, then again, the knight is pushed away. Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily such a bad damage to a pawn structure. And in terms of like why to exchange queens when you are trailing in the match, it's a 4 games match, and maybe Tomashevsky is kind of banking at his second game with the white pieces. Maybe he'll try to be solid with black and then level the score with the white pieces, but we'll see.
Does white want to, I was just actually going to ask you, does he want to trade on c6 and play with the knight against the bishop? We've seen especially yesterday, you know, just how tricky the knights are in blitz.
Yeah, just look what he's done. So he exchanges on c6 and still knight's place is on d3, what Grischuk says. Yeah, a4. Okay, that's interesting. So now a4 pawn needs some protection. After rook c4, you will have to play an ugly looking move, rook a1. But then eventually you put the knight on d3, it guards the base of your pawn chain, the pawn on b2, right? Pawn on b2 guards c3, c3 pawn guards d4, so pretty much no more active ideas for black on the queen side. And then white just brings the king in the center and slowly prepares to open the... Okay, it's not that slow, in fact, g4, very, very aggressive. Yeah, but still, you cannot play the endgame without a king, so that's why king is marching towards like e3, for instance, e3, maybe even d2. This is answered with rook a1, yeah. So what that setup achieves, white stops black's counterplay, more or less, right? White stops black's counterplay on the queen side, and then he will be the one looking for f4, f5 in the right moment.
When is the right moment? Can we...
Now. The time is now, yeah. The time is now. F5, yeah, and now, yeah, that's what you want to do. You want to take with e pawn, right, so that your king's, say, your king's position is safe. But now, if you pay attention, the d5 pawn is isolated and quite weak. So if white ever gets to attack the d5 pawn, that'll be perhaps the end of it. Rook e1, okay, that's an interesting move. After rook e1, I suspect, yeah, you take with the knight, and then black can actually capture the pawn on f5. Decided not to. Was about to say that gf5 is not such an achievement because you have a set of isolated weak pawns.
And now the knight is looking to jump into e3.
I actually think that Tomashevsky has missed this one.
Yeah.
Bishop f4 is what he needs to do, apparently, because allowing the knight on e3 is a little bit too much. Yeah, bishop f4. Now white has rook f1 question mark, or wait a second, maybe capture g6 first, and after h g6 rook f1. This could be an interesting idea.
There he goes.
Yeah, he goes for it. Capture there. I think h pawn takes, and after rook f1 there is still king g5. No, f pawn takes, but fair enough. So rook f1, now g5 would allow knight e3, but king g5 is still playable.
Yes, let's see.
Rook f1, king g5, and if h4 check, black still has king g4. In
the
fact,
king is looking very dodgy there, though, but it looks like there's no way to take any advantage of it.
Yeah, that's exactly the situation. It looks dangerous for black, but if white has nothing, that means that black is just much better, because a4 is hanging, and then h4, if you include h4, that's also hanging. So he starts with h4. That makes sense, yeah. Starts with h4. After king f5, though, he'll probably have to play king f3 to stop king g4. Rook c8 played by Tomashevsky, so driving the rook back. That, yeah, seems to make a lot of sense. Rook a3, rook b3. If black forgets about the b file at some point, might be an idea as well.
Where does the bishop go? Back to...
perhaps.
Well, doesn't go anywhere. Yeah, king f5.
Yeah. Yeah, because you need to control the e3 square. So alternative would have been some bishop h6, but then the king on f5 perhaps is just better placed than on f6 if you go bishop h6. Now, however, there is a threat. Imagine black plays some sort of rook b8, white goes knight e3. That's exactly what happens in the game.
Yeah, don't have to imagine it anymore. So I guess he's gonna take on b2 now, or what?
No, but then rook e5 and rook d5, and white is getting two connected passed pawns. And the fact that black's doubled his a pawns a long time ago, it actually turns out to be bad for black. Yes, and now g pawn is running, but white has two passes in the center. Well, that's rook b8, rook d5, check, the king goes there, c5. Doesn't matter how many pawns black has, as long as white has two connected passed pawns, this should be winning. Rook to g6, yeah, rook behind the passed pawn, then, yeah. That reminds me of one of the classical games of Philidor, in fact. I mean, one of the first, or maybe one of the only games that was published. So there was a long game where in the end game he won precisely with two connected passes against three isolated ones. King c6 is absolutely winning. Yep, rook, keep the rook on the a file, and then d5, d6, and you just win. Rook a5, d5, d6, rook a5's played.
And they just run.
That's game.
And Grischuk is going to take, there it is, Tomashevsky resigns after rook a5, and Grischuk takes a 2-0 lead in the final. Evgeny, we talked quite a bit yesterday about this, infamous final, World Cup final between Karjakin and Svidler. So we'll see if Tomashevsky can pull a Karjakin here.
Yeah, well, honestly, very, very unlikely against such an experienced player as Grischuk is. But same, I would say, if you would ask me before the World Cup final where Svidler was leading 2-0. So that's, that anything's possible. It will, of course, depend. That's a very easy thing to say. It will depend on the very next game. Yeah, if the game is not won by Tomashevsky, that's the end of this final. But if he wins, and all of a sudden, 2-1, it's a very slippery territory.
Absolutely.
So one might start thinking of, okay, I was 2-0 up, and then, now it's 2-1. It's all a matter of one game, and in this one game, it might be a matter of one move.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I don't really know. I've been so frustrated all day. I think people can see it. I see you very clearly. Maybe I can go for help to the chat. Chat can always help. Is there a Zoom expert? So basically I have the Zoom call, and the gray area you see is where my photo is in the Zoom call. So all I need, so we have this 2-view call. All I need is Miro to be on the right side. But I do not know how to orchestrate it, and Zoom has cost me my last nerve these last couple of days. So if anyone knows, the problem is that there have been some issues, and we didn't plan on using Zoom, but Zoom really seems to not get on well with broadcasting softwares. I've heard from others before that they've had the same issue. Evgenii, do you know if your Skype is still? Do you know if your Skype might cooperate?
Not sure. I mean, if we can have like a couple of minutes break, then we could figure out. But I'm afraid it's not the best idea to try now.
Because the players, is there maybe if someone from Lichess can let us know now that the players have played 2 games, will they take a quick break, or will they okay, so apparently they will continue soon. So we probably should not risk it.
Yeah, I don't think my appearance is the most attractive thing from, let's say, me being a commentator. So let's leave it without the camera. I think people are fine with that.
Okay, let's do that. Oh well. Okay, so the next game is off. Actually, the first move has been made already. And Evgenii Tomashevsky is now in a must-win situation. I don't know if someone from Lichess could maybe let us know if Tomashevsky does not win, will they still play a 4th game or not? I guess not, but either way, he has to win this game to come back in the final.
So opens up with c4 again as the game 1, but Grischuk changes, and instead of going for the King's Indian, he plays pretty much the pet line of his, this early bishop c5 move in the English opening. I think it was Grischuk's invention originally, and then there have been quite a lot of famous games in this line. Dubov overtaking Karjakin in the World Cup in Tbilisi. Then Magnus has played it with white, I'm guessing. Yes, there have been quite a few very, very interesting games.
Mm-hmm.
Knight to b6. I guess I remember this one.
So knight to b6.
Yeah.
Actually, I can just open. Funnily enough, we're following a top game. I opened the book for a second between Dingley Ren with the white pieces and Alexander Grischuk himself.
Yeah, from World Cup Khanty-Mansiysk, which was eventually won by Dingley Ren, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yes.
In
So they are still following that. In that game, Dingley Ren now played knight a4 here.
Yeah, knight a4, swapped the knights, and then very typical Sicilian play with bishop, developing the bishop, putting the rook to c1. So actually, do not be fooled by kind of first moves. It's not the real English opening. It's a dragon variation with colors reversed, right? The Sicilian dragon with black pretending to play white, something like that. Bishop c1 to d2. So a bit of a new move, but more or less the same ideas. Knight c3 to a4, or in some cases, knight c3 to e4, followed by rook c1, because the aim for this knight is to end up being on c5. Grischuk says, I'm not sure about the other maneuvers, but knight a4 is not the move you're playing in this game. Yeah. a5, a4, just to stop all the nonsense connected with this knight's jumps. Knight e4, rook c1, opting at c5 seems to be a decent move, though, because knight has not that much to do on c3. Yeah, alternatively, alternatively, it could be b4. That's, of course, very responsible move. b4, you force white take en passant.
When you're 2-0 down, you need to take your responsibilities sometimes.
Yeah, it's not like you're worried about your pawn structure anymore. yeah, exactly.
And knight e4 immediately, and now rook c1. So he's played the two moves you were advocating for a while. And then what's the plan? How does white continue here?
Puts the knight on c5, and yeah, I mean, by that point, black will have to react in some way. I mean, after knight c5, you cannot tolerate this knight forever. Yeah. On c5, so you'll have to do something. Maybe just take on c5 now that I'm thinking, because kind of psychologically, you don't want to trade the bishop for a knight, but the knight on c5 is annoying, and at the same time that's the only good piece white has. So after knight c5, I'm guessing you just take on c5, you play bishop e6, black is very solid. Yeah. Then aims at b3. I guess that's what Tomashevsky can do, or rather that Grischuk can do. Speaking of what Tomashevsky can do, apart from knight c5, it's not that clear. b4.
b4, wow. Captured immediately b4. By Grischuk, and bishop b4.
Yeah, bishop b4. So you see how powerful the knight on c5 is, that Tomashevsky wants to swap the bishops first and only then put the knight on c5. And yeah, along with that, the a3 pawn, of course, was hanging. So that's the way basically to defend the a3 pawn.
So can I take on b4 now with the knight to try and go?
Yeah, you take with the knight, white captures with the pawn, and still now the pawn from b4 supports knight c5. And black's problem of not being able to develop the c8 bishop to some reasonable square is still there. Rook e8. Played by Grischuk. Okay, I mean, it feels a little bit shaky, this move, like allowing, queen the access to f7. I would be interested in, like, going queen c7, if rook f8, going to h5, all of a sudden, by some miracle, the queen ends up being on h5, closer to the king. Again, maybe not immediately, but yeah, well, actually, after rook fd1, I can imagine black trading on b4, playing bishop e6 with the tempo. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and then bishop e6.
Yeah. So that's one option. What else? These knights on b6 and c6. Are they happy where they are, or could we try and reroute them? Bishop e6, he starts with that move.
Bishop e6, he starts with this move, but honestly, I thought it could be somewhat dangerous if white accepts the challenge, captures on e6. Bishop takes b4 and say goes to g4 or h3. I understand white loses the a3 pawn, but he has like a group of pieces to play on light squares around the black king. So I would be quite optimistic about this. Now, queen b1, modest reply. Yeah, but that allows black to have kind of good things from both continuations. So he can trade on b4 with the knight, and at the same time bishop e6 is played.
By the
Besides
way,
not though.
I just wanted to say, I think Peter Svidler might actually be listening to us, because he said in the Lichess chat, is Baku 15 being brought up again? Yes, I take the full blame, Peter. Apologies, it will not happen again.
Yeah, it will. Oh, okay, it will never be forgotten. That's a famous World Cup final.
Yeah,
It's in the books.
unfortunately. So, E3. And now what?
E3, and now what? And now, yeah, struggle continues. That's the nature of English opening, pretty much. Yeah, was Black. I mean, Black's problem. I mean, now I'm switching to kind of sarcastic way. But Black's problem is that he kind of achieves good squares for all of his pieces too quickly, and then he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So White, in a way, has more useful moves simply because his position originally was not that great. So he has more moves to improve the position.
Yeah, and the players have both taken their sweet time. Let's remind everyone, they started with 5 minutes on the clock. They are now both down to under a minute 50. And only on move 17 still, so both investing a lot of time on, figuring out what the best setup is, where the best square for the pieces are.
Yeah, so White after BSA A3 and Rook FD1, White clearly hints at, playing D3, D4 in the right moment. I don't think it's the right moments now, but possibly after, say, Knight C3 or Knight C5. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, if Knight C3 was the move, why not Knight C5 is not the move? So Knight C5 and then E3, E4, D, and then D3, D4.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I'm thinking Grischuk might be in quite a bit of a trouble there.
Queen E7.
Queen E7, yeah, so that targets this C5 knight, and then after E4, bishop C6, White won't have before B5.
Because the knight is hanging on C5, yeah.
But one thing you can think of is just playing, say, knight H4, trade the light square bishops off, and then B7 will be hanging, your knight from H4 potentially wants to jump to F5. Okay, knight D2, same idea, but different route for this knight. So knight apparently goes to B3, A5, or E4 if needed, and the bishops are traded off eventually. So now B7 pawn is a bit of a worry for Black.
And he defends it with Rook A7, but also I guess he's looking at doubling the rooks maybe on the A file and coming down all the way to A2.
Yeah, exactly. So what White is supposed to do, knight B3. Yeah, I like this move. So it's kind of multi-purpose. You support D4 and also knight B3 to A5 is an annoying threat. Knight on A5 is an unpleasant outpost there.
Yeah.
Knight D7. Yeah, I think that's about the moment you want to play D4, E4 is the big concern. He's going forward. Yep.
D4 is on the board.
D4, yeah, and I want to play E4 as Black, but does it work? Because even though I have the bishop, it's not the position that I want to...
Takes on C5. This is a surprise to me.
Takes on C5, and then even DC5 makes a lot of sense. Not to mention BC5, which opens the B file.
He goes for the third option, knight takes.
Knight takes, yeah, well, maybe that you know what, that's perhaps mathematically could be the best move, because White gets full control and this minimal edge with no chance of getting
And
worse.
Just look at the time situation, 3 seconds for Grischuk. He is going to play the remainder of this game on increment. Can I play C6? Or is that going to be...
C6, Rook D8. The question is if you have enough to fight for the D square. Yeah, I actually thought that's the way. So you trade and then you play Rook C6, you play Rook D6, or just B4, B5, so to make sure that the pawn is pinned to B6.
Now what do I do? Rook C1, double on the C file, or...
He trades, trades and plays H4, then perhaps H5 is what you do. Or G4, G5. G4, G5 is another idea. I think it's quite unpleasant. I'm not sure I'm not sure. Maybe you want to play queen c4 to stop rook c8. That's the other thing. That's very unpleasant for Sasha. Okay, h5 played, rook c8 exactly. But is he? Can he trade? Yeah, that's a big question. After queen c4, you can't really allow yourself to trade, especially with those like few seconds on the clock. Queen d3, however, that's a nice move. That's a nice move, activating the queen.
Are you threatening? I was wondering if Black was already threatening a perpetual check, because let's remind everyone, all Sasha needs is a draw to win the final. But now he's a bit on the.
Yeah, but how do you make?
But there's no way to break through. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you make progress exactly? Queen e8.
What happened?
Rook takes g7?
No, but the game is over. Tomashevsky lost. I don't know if he flagged. What happened?
Not sure.
I guess he must have flagged.
Or maybe, he could have kind of not really flagged on purpose, but simply given up. Because,
wow.
when you understand that, not much you can do. So it's
and
a
that's
3
that. We have a winner.
Yeah.
Sasha Grischuk wins this Play for Russia charity tournament. Congratulations to him.
Yeah, and I want to, kind of put it back at people in the chat who are claiming that this first game, that was nonsense. Grischuk played very weak against Kramnik. Maybe that was, but then he came back and it was 5 straight wins by Grischuk at the end. Yes, so 2 wins against Kramnik and then 3 more wins in the, 3 more wins. And in the final against Tomashevsky. That's just incredible. Well done.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Sasha. Evgenii, I've tried to make you the host. I'm still desperately trying to get your camera back on screen. Guys in the chat, don't go anywhere yet. Yeah, we're hoping to get Sasha in for an interview. The interviews have more or less meant the end of me, but it would be great to hear from him. He, I'm sure, will be anyway first interviewed on the Russian broadcast. Actually, Evgenii, do you mind if we try to switch to Skype? I guess we have a few minutes to try.
Let's try. Now I'm actually learning new features about being, a host in Zoom. I can mute everyone. That sounds like a good plan.
Unfortunately, even if you mute me only, that will only have few people in the chat will still be able to hear me through the broadcast. But yeah, let's try to end this. We'll try to fix it on air. We'll keep the people, at least give them a show to watch in terms of me struggling with the broadcast here. So let's try if we can set up the call on Skype.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna leave this meeting. Okay, and I will close Zoom. He is gone now, I see that. So immediately the software is a lot happier. I really like, so the thing that happened today, once again, apologies, guys, I need to actually, it's calling me, I need to open Skype first. This is not that I was planning to troubleshoot my issues live on air, but oh well. How, and now Skype is not even letting me log in. I hope I'm putting on a show for you guys, even if it's going to be the end of me. It's going to be the end of me, but what a final we'll have. We'll talk about it in 1 second. Here's fingers crossed that this is going to work. Where is Evgenii? Okay, so let's try. I'm not hearing anything now. Let me see. Let's see, I think Evgenii is here. Evgenii! Okay, so now, yeah, I have you back on camera now, but not on audio. It looks like Skype and Zoom are just taking the Mickey here today. We've both been fighting our own demons, but yeah, I guess if you cannot unmute yourself, we'll have to have to go back to Zoom in that case. Yeah, either hearing or seeing, it looks like we cannot fix both at the same time, which is incredibly frustrating. But okay, so I'll send you a Zoom invite again, and maybe if we restart it all, hopefully that will fix all issues. So I don't know, can you hear me, Evgeny? You can, yeah? Okay, so I will send you a Zoom. I'll send you a Zoom invite. But I cannot hear you. No, unfortunately. Okay, we'll give him 1 second. See if I still cannot hear you. No. People are trying to lip read. They are trying their lip reading skills. But no, it looks like, unfortunately, this is not going to work. So we are going to try Zoom again. Let me just make sure that Skype is killed off on my desktop, because Gather, they are definitely not happy. That is for sure. Okay, wish me luck, wish us luck, in fact. We are starting a new meeting. Okay, let's invite Evgenii. Where is Evgenii gone? He is here. And yeah, once again, I can only apologize about the technical issues today. I see there's still 450 of you on watching us on Twitch. So thank you very much for that. I'm still hoping that we will be able to both get Miro back on cam and hopefully also be joined by Alexander Grischuk. Evgenii, I see you. I hear you as well. Once again, though, the camera. Can I just cut it new now?
Yeah,
I've
do whatever you like.
I wish I could do whatever I like, but no. You know what the problem is? I still have the same issue, that it's just not cut in the right place. Unfortunately, XSplit is not letting me cut anything.
But then it's an XSplit issue then. That's something apparently with my Skype, which I will be fixed maybe by just uninstalling it and then reinstalling it. But for now, I don't know. I mean, it recognizes the mic correctly. It says it's a Rode podcast or whatever, and it doesn't work. It's simply muted.
Yeah, I'm so confused about what's going on. Apparently, Sasha is finished on the Russian broadcast, so if he would like to join us, I'll give the link. I think I'll give the new Zoom link anyway, and we will see what happens. Okay, so I'm still hoping that we will be joined by Sasha. Guys, I'm so sorry that you cannot see Evgenii. I do not know what is up with that, why it's doing this. So yeah, we are waiting, basically waiting to see if Sasha is going to join us, and then I will go and throw some darts at a Zoom voodoo doll. Those are my plans for the rest of the day. Let's see. Okay, so we're still waiting to see. We're still waiting for confirmation that Sasha, about the possibility of Sasha joining us. But Miro, what a fantastic display by Grischuk today. First of all, coming back from losing the first game to Kramnik to win the next two, and then completely dominating this final against Tomashevsky. One second. Unfortunately, there is now an issue with your audio as well. I can barely hear you anymore. Yeah, I know something pretentious. You can't hear Miro. That's because I can barely hear him myself. I can barely hear you, unfortunately, Evgenii. How about Evgenii? What would happen? I'm trying to think if you could join us over phone. Can you say something?
Yes, I can.
Now you're back. Yeah, that's better.
I've just found where to check the volume for my mic. Yeah, that's weird. What's going on there? Yeah, but let's not blame the software. Apparently, we are just.
I'm gonna blame the software for everything. I have no shame. I will blame the software on all our issues today.
Okay, but eventually works, right?
Yeah, we can hear you. We cannot see you, but unfortunately, yeah, that is the way it is. And I think we are still waiting for Sasha to hopefully join us.
Yeah. I don't know what people are discussing in the Lichess chat. Yeah, well, fair point that Grischuk indeed was today, well, the hero, the only player in plus, and he's in a huge plus, right? So
yeah.
5 out of 6. First of all, the only player who played 6 games and won 5 of them after blundering heavily in game 1 against Vladimir Kramnik.
And what I'm actually going to do is, since the event is now, the games are over, we are still waiting on Sasha. I think now is a good time if you people, first of all, thank you so much for watching us over the last 3 days. And I think if you have any questions for Evgenii or for myself while we wait for Sasha, now is your time, while I'm still desperately trying to get your camera back, Evgenii, but
I think it's fine as it is. I think it's honestly, you should not be wasting your efforts, and
yes.
Then let's better get Grischuk on the call.
I think Grischuk has been given the Zoom link, so he will just simply join the call when he is ready, I think. Let me see. So, okay, so he's gonna be another 5 more minutes until he joins.
Okay, so what we could do is once again try to go back and, once again in the retrospective to remind our viewers, to remind ourselves what was happening during this tournament. So if you remember, day 1, it was absolutely dominant performance by Alexander Grischuk. I'm guessing it was 5.5 out of 7, right? So 3 draws, 4 wins. And
actually,
then
maybe I can bring up the games even. Let me see. So if I go to broadcasts, so yeah, so day 1, will we see any standings here? No, but okay, anyway, the more or less.
Yeah, you can look at the games as well, but it's not the games I wanted to talk about. So first day, it's Grischuk leading. Karjakin having a bad tournament, Peter Svidler having a bad tournament. So it was Grischuk and then Kramnik and Tomashevsky kind of in the zone, right? What happens on day 2? Kramnik literally crushes everyone. So he ends up in a very, very huge score. Like I think it was 2 points difference between him and Peter Svidler in the final table of preliminary tournament. So Peter Svidler improves his play, shows fantastic result himself, and ends up being second in the qualification. And Grischuk barely makes it after winning the last, kind of last train, catching on the last train, winning somewhat suspicious game against Alexander Riazantsev in a way that his position was at some point just bad. So Grichuk wins against Riazantsev, catches up ties for the 4th place, I'm guessing, with Tomashevsky, and makes it to the finals. And finals, you've seen what happened. So absolute dominance. Well, lost game 1, but then bounced back immediately, and no chance whatsoever for Tomashevsky in the final.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really a great performance, and in a way it was nice to also hear from him yesterday, and I'm curious to hopefully hear from him again soon in a second. But it seemed like, he didn't put too much pressure onto himself or anything like that. It's all, let's remind everyone, the players are not actually getting any money whatsoever for this tournament. All the proceeds go to charity in the fight against COVID-19. And also, let's remind, I think it's still not too late if you would like to donate to this cause. I'm sure somebody, one of the Lead Chess mods, can put the link one more time into the chat. And yeah, over $330,000 raised. What a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, and if you remember during the kind of setting up things process, I was asking if we will mention some specific companies who donated or stuff like that, and the decision being taken eventually that like every single coin counts. There will be no special mentions, but of course, thanks everyone who donated. Well, according to what you could, right? So there won't be like praising some particular companies. Yes, thanks everyone for taking part in this event by donating at least something.
I think one of the special thanks has to go, of course, to Vladimir Kramnik. If I understood him correctly, yesterday is one of maybe the one person who came up with the idea originally, and then of course the Russian Chess Federation was a great support, so thanks to them. Also to Lead Chess, for hosting the event. But yeah, so many people involved in making it on happen. And I'm hearing that Sasha Grischuk is apparently almost ready to join us. So
okay,
we're just...
Let's wait for him.
I'm waiting for him, and I'm sort of crossing all my fingers and my toes for like, just let us get him on the line. And yeah, what are you going to ask him, Evgenii? Or maybe even in the chat, people, if you have questions that you would like us to ask Sasha, now is your time.
Yeah, I think it's more of what people want to ask him, because yeah, I can talk to Sasha. I mean, he's in Moscow, I'm in Moscow. I'm supposed to have his phone number somewhere. So, right.
So yeah, now is your chance. If you have any good questions or any interesting questions for Sasha, I think, okay, of course we'll ask him about the games today. But yeah, he's been a very busy man actually lately. He's done quite a bit of online commentary for Chess24, and he's about to get back into action again this weekend. We have another great online tournament starting. It's been mentioned in the chat, the Steinitz Memorial, which not only he will be playing in, but also his wife Katerina Lagno.
Yeah. I've heard about this tournament, but I don't quite remember what the format is. If you could remind me.
You're putting me on the spot. I think it's an 8 players event, but what the exact format is, I'm also not entirely sure. And Bakus actually has a good question. I'll try to remember it. Hopefully I don't forget. He says he has no questions, but he would like us to ask him if he is familiar with the Thug Life meme.
Ah, okay. I think he cultivates it quite a lot. I mean, with his appearances and his interviews, I think he's not only familiar, but could be one of the creators. Or, kind of gray cardinal behind the meme, yeah. What should I do so that they create more memes?
I know. Also in the same vein, Chess Dude Guy wants to know, is being cool a natural thing or did he have to train for it? Maybe I'm not gonna ask him all those questions, but I like them. I for one like them.
Yeah, but where he is?
This I don't know.
Don't want to sound impatient, but it seems like it's been half an hour already since the games are finished.
Let's see if we have any news. Okay, so I heard 4 minutes ago. I saw that he must be on his way to us. But maybe Zoom works in mysterious ways, and it's a long way to our call. But he should be here any second, and he's in the waiting room. So let him in.
Well, the update in Slack is that we will not have interviews. Have you seen
No,
this?
no, he's here. Sasha, congratulations.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, thank you.
So, let's talk about today. It was an eventful day for you. First up, your semi-final against Vladimir Kramnik. It was a big match. You lost the first game with the white pieces. How did you feel after that?
No, I felt like another blunder like yesterday. You just gave rook. Yesterday I gave some pieces as well. So, but then actually the two games I won against Vladimir, I think those were my two best games in the whole event.
So I'm just opened this second game where you fought back with the black pieces. Is there any particular moment you would like to highlight here, or just in general?
No, not really. Just the whole game I think was good. I mean, not like some great moment, but just I think the level was quite high from me. And the same about second. The same about this Apocalypse game. How is it?
Close, the Armageddon.
Yes, Armageddon.
So for the Armageddon, it was actually Kramnik, I believe, who chose the colors?
Oh yes, but before that game in this event, we won all 4 games with black, so it would be quite strange if he picked white.
Absolutely, and you with the white pieces. I mean, it was a tough game. Where did you feel that game turned? It seemed very.
No, I thought I'm better the whole game.
Whole game.
I was just building an advantage. No, that's why I'm saying that those 2 games I won against Vladimir I liked the most because there were some lucky moments or something or huge blunders by him. It was just really good games, I think, for me, which cannot be said about the final games.
Just
because
before, I wanted to ask you, just before we talk about the final games, you said that you're proud of these 2 games. Do you feel that the fact that they were played against Vladimir Kramnik, does that add to how you feel about them? Or would it have been the same against any other opponent, or is there, something special about the fact you played Kramnik, who doesn't really play classical chess anymore?
No, it has. I mean, okay, if it was played against some beginner player, of course I would not be that fond of those games, but against any strong opponent, it's the same.
And so, sorry, I had interrupted you. We're about to talk about the final games, so you were not quite as satisfied with those, but you still won the final very convincingly, winning 2 games. Well, winning all 3 games. I keep thinking the third game was a draw, but no, winning all 3 games.
Yes, but all games were very, very difficult. Okay, when you play King's Indian, you expect to have a difficult game, and that's what happened in game 1. And then I managed to swindle him, but of course I was much worse. Then in second game, I had a pleasant advantage in the end game, and I rushed with this F5, and I was not better at all after that. And third game was just, I think he played it excellently until some certain point, and I played quite awfully. And okay, at least I never blundered a piece like I used to.
So, when all was said and done, you have won this tournament. You already joined us yesterday when you mentioned, the sporting aspect here is secondary. It is a charity event. A lot of funds have been raised. Yesterday, you told us that you picked a charity supporting homeless people, I believe mostly in Moscow. But for the people who were not there yesterday, somebody in the chat was asking, can you maybe elaborate on why you picked a charity supporting homeless people when there's so many charities to choose from?
No, I said it yesterday. I think it's the most unprotected sort of category of people. That's why. But it's not only in Moscow. Actually, I think their main office of this organization is in St. Petersburg. But they also have one in Moscow and also in other cities.
Great.
But their main one is actually in St. Petersburg.
Okay, well, I
but it was this why I picked it. I am answering why I picked this category of people, but exact organization. The thing is, my good friend Ilya Gorodetsky, you probably know him. Yeah, at least Evgenii knows him.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, his nickname sort of is Ilyushan. Everyone knows him as Ilyushan, but he is Ilya Gorodetsky in real life, and his wife has a huge charity hospice in Moscow, and I think in whole Russia. So I asked him for advice because, of course, she is extremely competent. Because I'm sort of skeptical about a lot of charities. I'm sure there is a lot of money laundering going in some of them and so on. So I asked for advice about some charity in which I could trust.
Actually,
and he gave me one.
Yeah, people in the chat were wondering if you can tell the name of the charity, I guess, and so those are interested can also look it up and also donate themselves.
Okay. It's the name is Nochleshka.
Okay, I think
Nochleshka is like how to say it's where you can spend the night, and the site is homeless.ru. Homeless.ru. Very simple.
I've put it in the chat. Great, thank you very much for that. And maybe from Evgenii, I don't know if you have any more questions. I just wanted to ask you more in general, Sasha. You have been involved in a lot of, of what's been happening online lately with some commentary gigs for Chess24 and this and that. How does it feel to you to not be playing over the board anymore, but be so involved with everything that's going on the internet?
No, actually, chess-wise, it's completely fine. It's, what's going on is terrible life-wise. But actually, chess-wise, it's completely fine. I actually probably enjoy more playing online than live.
That's interesting to hear. Speaking of playing online, you won this charity event where, that was the main focus, helping people in need, but you will be back in action just a couple of days from now. Is it starting already tomorrow in the Steinitz memorial, where the sporting aspect will be again more in the foreground? So how do you look forward to that?
No, actually, tomorrow I will play 2 tournaments. It's this Steinitz Memorial and also Chess Brass tournament. There will be a very strong Chess Brass tournament. There is a team Chess Brass from Canada in which I'm playing in this, how it's called?
In the Pro Chess League.
Yeah, Pro Chess League, yes. In Pro Chess League, we have very nice team, and now our chief, our boss, Eric Hansen, is organizing a tournament, and it will be a very strong tournament. We have 3 players from our team. It's me, Anish Giri, and Alireza Firuja. There is Jan Nepomniachtchi. There is Hikaru Nakamura. You probably heard of him. And there is one more also very strong player. There is 6 players, all very strong. So yeah, it's nice. I mean, I haven't played 2 chess tournaments in a single day since Calatrava. There was very nice rapid tournament in Spain, in a city, in a town called Calatrava, and there was 3 days rapid. And also some blitz tournaments. So one day I actually played 3 tournaments there, 2 blitz and also this rapid. But since then, I think it's my first time to play 2 tournaments in one day.
Amazing. Well, you're gonna be busy, so I'll let you go. But before I let you go and get some rest before tomorrow, and best of luck there. On top of, once again, congratulations for today. Before I let you go, one final question that the chat was dying to ask you. Are you familiar with the whole Thug Life meme around your persona?
No, I saw it on YouTube, I think.
And what do you think of it?
I don't know much about it. Honestly, but I think it's not related to me. It's like a well-known meme, this
yeah.
It's not made because of me. So.
But I think you're the leader, let's say, in the chess world. The Thug Life chess leader, if I can put it that way.
No, I mean, it's better than, if it was Draw King or something like some other players have. So, yeah, so it's fine.
That is a very good point. Sasha, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations once again, and best of luck with your 2 tournaments tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was Sasha Grischuk, everyone. Evgenii, what did you make of what you had to say?
I kept silent just listening to Sasha. Yeah, I mean, he's just cool as always. Yeah, so I can't really add too much to that. Yeah,
I know.
At the end, you really feel, it's well deserved that he wins, and the attitude about the game of Alexander Grischuk is really, really deserved to be praised.
Absolutely, and also I thought it was really, really nice what he said about the charity it shows, and how he really wanted to make sure, that he picked one where he was sure that the money is going to the right people. And I mean, very well deserved winner of this tournament. He's played some such entertaining games, and as he said, the last 2 games against Kramnik were extremely well played. So congratulations to him, but also congratulations to all the other participants. It was great to see all their games, and I think they really put up a fantastic show for fans around the world, and all that for a good cause.
And one more congratulations. I think congratulations to us, Fiona, that we've managed to survive, even though all the, against the rage of machines, because at some point, it felt like everything falls apart. So once again, grateful to Lead Chess for giving me this opportunity to commentate on this fantastic event. Grateful to my co-worker, co-caster, Fiona.
Thank you as well, Miro. It's been a lot of fun.
Handling the broadcast, and thanks everyone who was watching us. That was a pleasure working for you.
Absolutely, I couldn't have said it any better, so I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much, Miro. Thank you to everyone who worked so hard behind the scenes to put up this tournament. Thank you, Lichess. Indeed, and of course, last but certainly not least, all you guys who are watching us for the last 2-3 days. I couldn't be doing this without any of you. So yeah, Evgeny, I'm going to end this call now. And hopefully we'll be back for some more coverage somewhere very soon.
Yeah, thank you once again, people, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Evgeny. Bye-bye to all our viewers. See you guys soon.